in the middle of the island. Ji Yuan paced within the formation. Beside him, 2 ingos promoted to the 5th level of Qi refining accompanied him. No longer needing his own spiritual energy to control the array, he felt right at home. He estimated that with this formation and the 2 ghosts, he could kill an ordinary 6th level Qi refining cultivator without even lifting a finger. Unless they came prepared with something potent like rooster blood, the enemy would find it nearly impossible to break this ghost formation. After all, this array had officially crossed the threshold into a first-grade formation. Especially here in the Yunwu Marsh, the number of people capable of deploying such a formation could be counted on one hand. Once he confirmed the formation was working perfectly, Ji Yuan waved his hand to retract it, as leaving it active would only waste spirit stones. But the very moment he withdrew the array, he sensed a flash of danger. The dragon scale shield appeared behind his back in an instant, followed by a crisp clanging sound. Ji Yuan immediately reached out and slammed the ghost flag back down. The formation manifested instantly. At the same time, he summoned the white water flying sword, though he still wasn't sure what exactly had happened. Not only that, he slapped a golden body talisman onto himself and gripped 2 lightning strike talismans between his fingers. As the black mist surged, his figure flickered and vanished into the ghostly fog. At that same moment, thanks to the formation, he clearly saw the attacker, a female cultivator with an iron sword strapped to her back. She looked to be in her 40s. Her aura was at the late stage of Qi refining. However, Ji Yuan didn't feel overly threatened. He judged that she was likely only at the 7th level of Qi refining. What concerned him most was that he had never seen this woman before. Since they were strangers, why did she suddenly attack him? Could she be another bandit? Falling into the formation, the female cultivator also realized something was wrong. She formed a hand seal, summoning the iron sword from her back to hover beside her. Additionally, a piece of green cloth wrapped around her body, spinning incessantly. Unsure of the situation, she didn't act recklessly. She only watched her surroundings with high alert. Ji Yuan observed everything within the formation. Seeing that she wasn't attacking blindly, he took the opportunity to ask for her reason. Hearing this, the woman replied icily that every member of the demonic path deserved to be eradicated. She believed he had been slaughtering innocent cultivators. Hearing that, Ji Yuan guessed she was one of those rare righteous cultivators in the Yunwu Marsh. She must have been passing by, sensed the aura of the ghost formation, and mistook him for a demonic cultivator. Thinking about it, it made sense. The moment this ghost formation appeared, it radiated an overwhelming amount of energy. If he were in her shoes, he would have thought the same. Ji Yuan began to explain. He told her he had obtained this formation after killing a demonic cultivator, and that he hadn't refined it himself. The woman remained suspicious. She argued that a thief would never admit to being a thief. Ji Yuan countered, saying a demonic cultivator wouldn't be as open and upright as he was. Furthermore, if he were truly a demon, he would have attacked long ago. There would be no need for all this talk. The woman wanted to argue further, but he cut her off, refusing to give her a chance. He added that he hated demonic cultivators as much as she did, which was why he had killed the previous owner. If she attacked him simply because he used a demonic formation, it would surely break the hearts of righteous cultivators everywhere. As soon as he said this, the woman finally wavered. After a moment of thought, she told him that if he showed his face, she would believe him. Ji Yuan hadn't gone far. In fact, he was standing right in front of her. With a single thought, the nearby black mist dissipated. His figure became clearly visible. The woman jumped in surprise, not expecting Ji Yuan to be so close. If he had attacked just now, she would have been severely wounded, if not dead. Moreover, after seeing his face clearly, she was even more astonished, surprised by his appearance, and shocked by his young age. Finally, she admitted she had misunderstood. She retracted her artifacts. She cupped her fists and introduced herself as Hu Fong from Jingda Ward. Ji Yuan returned the gesture, identifying himself as Ji Yuan from Tsingtao Market. Once the misunderstanding was cleared, Hu Fong suggested he take down the formation. In her heart, she felt a mix of fear and a hint of envy. Because this was a formation, something she had never heard of anyone in the Yunwu Marsh possessing. Once Ji Yuan retracted the ghost formation, she looked toward the water to the northwest and called out loudly. She shouted that he was from Sinto Market, not a demonic cultivator. Just like her and the other person. They were all dedicated to hunting down demonic bandits. Hearing this, Ji Yuan was instantly alarmed. A chill ran down his spine. He hadn't realized there was another master hiding nearby, especially when he saw a Dharma boat breaking through the water. His wariness intensified. Two late-stage chi refining cultivators. If they truly decided to fight him, he wasn't at all sure he could escape. But fortunately, the misunderstanding had been resolved. Through this incident, he reminded himself that unless it was absolutely necessary, he must never deploy this ghost flag carelessly. When a middle-aged man landed in front of him, Ji Yuan looked closely and realized the man looked somewhat familiar. A question arose in his mind. Could this be Senior Du Kong? Du Kong laughed heartily and confirmed it was indeed him. He added that since they were both from Sinto Market, there was no need for formalities. Just calling a brother Du would suffice. He agreed that since it was just a misunderstanding, no harm was done. At the same time, he remarked that Ji Yuan's formation was quite impressive. Ji Yuan kept his emotions hidden. He simply took a step back. Forcing a smile, he said it was all just luck, even though he was being very careful. Du Kong still noticed his cautious movement. Du Kong told him to relax, as they weren't bandits. There was no need to be afraid. Ji Yuan only smiled and cupped his hands, attributing everything to good fortune. Seeing this, Du Kong gave him an annoyed glance. He then mentioned that he and Hu Fong had business to attend to. They had to head deep into the Yunwu marsh. They would talk more when they returned. Ji Yuan cupped his hands to both of them, seeing them off. After they had traveled a distance, Hu Fong asked Du Kong who the formation had previously belonged to. Du Kong said in a low voice that it belonged to the Ghost Island Lord of Huayin Ward. That man was only at the middle stage of chi refining. But a few years ago, Han Feiyu had fought him. Relying on the power of that formation, he was able to fight on equal terms with Han Feiyu, who was at the 7th level of chi refining. Afterward, members of their association stepped in to mediate, and both sides stopped. He hadn't expected Ji Yuan to have secretly killed the Ghost Island Lord, and even seized his formation. Hu Fong knew Han Feiyu's reputation well, so she became even more curious about what kind of person Ji Yuan really was. Du Kong let out a breath. He admitted that just like her, this was the first time he had heard that name. Hu Fong guessed that Ji Yuan must be a rising star. Perhaps they would meet him in their association before long. Du Kong nodded, thinking that would be a good thing, because if they found themselves outmatched later, they might be able to ask Ji Yuan for help. With his formation, their chances of success will be much higher. Hu Fong voiced her agreement. As for Ji Yuan, after they left, he quickly steered his boat underwater and vanished. But he didn't rush back to Sinto Market. Instead, he circled the Yunwu Marsh for 2 whole days. It wasn't until the 3rd day that he returned to shore from a different direction and headed home. However, the moment he reached his courtyard gate, just as he was about to push it open, his eyes habitually glanced at the side of the door. That single look made him stop in his tracks. Beside the door sat a seashell. Ji Yuan had never forgotten his promise to Qiu Tianhai. Back then, when Qiu Tianhai left Qiuyu Island to shoulder his responsibilities, they had agreed that upon his return, he would place a seashell in front of Ji Yuan's house. At that time, they would meet at Qiuyu Island. Since last autumn, from that day on, every time Ji Yuan returned, he checked for a seashell at his door. Unfortunately, he had never seen one. From last autumn through this spring, he finally saw the seashell by his door. It meant Qiu Tianhai was back. Ji Yuan let out a long sigh of relief, because regardless of anything else, it was good that he made it back. Afterward, he entered the house. First, he checked the situation inside. Confirming everything was fine, he harvested the spirit eggs and spirit soil accumulated over the past 2 days. Only then did he leave. He turned off the pigsty's effects, because the blood essence it produced was too overwhelming. When he wasn't home, he didn't dare leave that building effect active. The chicken coop was much more manageable. The Black Wind boat cut through the water. The location of Qiuyu Island. Ji Yuan only vaguely remembered it, but he wasn't worried. He knew he'd find it once he reached the general area. Half a day later, after some wandering, he finally spotted the familiar small island. He steered the boat to the shore. As he jumped onto the sand, he tucked the Black Wind boat into his storage bag. Stepping onto the soft sand of the shore, Ji Yuan scanned his surroundings with a hint of caution. He hadn't seen any sign of Qiu Tianhai. Something wasn't right. If he were truly here, he would have come out to meet him by now. Ji Yuan formed a hand seal, summoning the dragon scale shield. The tortoise shell spun around him, giving him a temporary sense of security. He slowly ventured deeper into the island. The surrounding reeds had sprouted new shoots, tall enough to hide a person without any trouble. Once inside, he called out for Old Hai. Calling Xiao Tian Hai by his full name was too conspicuous. It would be troublesome if someone else overheard. But despite calling several times, there was no response. Xiaoyu Island wasn't large. Ji Yuan knew immediately that Xiao Tian Hai wasn't on the island. Doubt began to cloud his mind. Could something have gone wrong? Thinking this, Ji Yuan quickened his pace, running from one end of the island to the other. Sure enough, on the sandy shore, there were several deep gouges, filled with stagnant lake water. Not only that, the nearby reeds even showed signs of being scorched. Clearly, a battle had taken place here. Ji Yuan carefully examined the surroundings. He realized these marks were still quite fresh, meaning it hadn't happened long ago. He immediately considered the possibility that Xiao Tianhai had been waiting for him, but was discovered and attacked. So where was he now? Finding no one on the island, Ji Yuan took the Black Wind boat and circled Qiuyu Island several more times. But he still found nothing. He then steered the boat underwater to continue the search. He searched repeatedly, but still came up empty-handed. If that was the case, there was only one possibility. During the fight, one side fled while the other gave chase. But where they went, no one knew. Trying to find someone in the vast Yunwu marsh was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Unable to find him, Ji Yuan didn't leave, but chose to stay on a nearby, small island to wait through the night. But in the end, he still didn't notice anything unusual. Xiao Tianhai didn't return. No one else came to Qiuyu Island either. So Ji Yuan had no choice but to return to Tsingtao Market first. Xiao Tianhai used to be a prominent figure at Tsingtao Market. Some even called him the second Han Feiyu. So if he returned and was spotted, people at the market would definitely be talking. Upon returning this time, Ji Yuan didn't go home, but went straight into the market. Most of the roadside stalls were covered with thatched roofs, selling talismans, pills, and various miscellaneous items. There were many fishermen passing by. Ji Yuan intentionally slowed down to listen to their conversations. Unfortunately, after walking through 2 streets, he hadn't heard a single bit of news regarding Xiao Tianhai. Left with no choice, he wound his way to a secluded courtyard and knocked on the door. After a moment, the sound of footsteps came from the courtyard. Then the door swung open. A middle-aged man with graying hair and uneven eyes poked his head out. Old Diviner Li was the same as always. He was about to ask who it was and drive them away. But when he saw Ji Yuan's face, he immediately invited him inside. He even served tea. The last time Ji Yuan came here, the old man saw that his cultivation was only at the 4th level of qi refining. But meeting him again, he was already at the 6th level, just like the old man himself. To progress so much in less than half a year, Old Diviner Li couldn't help but take him more seriously. Once inside, Ji Yuan didn't drink the tea, but said directly that Xiao Tianhai was back. Old Diviner Li froze for a moment, then hurriedly asked where he was. How was he? Was he okay? Even though he was Xiao Tianhai's uncle. Just hearing the news of his return, Old Diviner Li instantly lost his usual composure. Ji Yuan shook his head, saying he hadn't actually met him. He paused for a moment before recounting the promise he and Xiao Tianhai made last year, that they would meet at a certain place upon his return. But when he went there this time, no one was there. He only found traces of a battle left behind. Hearing that, Old Diviner Li understood immediately. He stood up, intending to go out and gather information. Ji Yuan wanted to go with him, but Old Diviner Li analyzed the situation calmly. He explained that he was Xiao Tianhai's uncle. The Qin family knew this, so his inquiries wouldn't raise suspicion. But if Ji Yuan went snooping, he might attract unwanted attention. So it was better for him to wait here. With that, the old man hurried out. His movements were agile, showing none of his previous limping gait. Ji Yuan realized this old man was deeper than he looked. He didn't go out, but took out a copy of the True Explanation of Alchemy and began to read carefully. He figured that when starting out, knowing multiple trades was always a good thing, especially since his buildings could be upgraded. It wasn't until noon that Old Diviner Li returned with a grim expression. He said he hadn't heard anyone mention anything. It was very likely that Xiao Tianhai had either killed the other person or was still on a run. He told Ji Yuan to go home and wait, because if Xiao Tianhai returned, he wouldn't look for his uncle, but he would definitely look for Ji Yuan. At this point, Ji Yuan had no other choice. He could only agree. Before leaving, he told old diviner Li to let him know if there was any news. He left his address before departing, perhaps because he was too worried about Xiao Tianhai. After returning home, Ji Yuan found it difficult to settle his mind for cultivation. Left with no choice, he entered the meditation room to comprehend the second level of the surging wave sword technique. After all, the meditation room had the effect of calming the mind and focusing energy. 3 days passed like this. Ji Yuan finally received a message from old diviner Li, saying someone had spotted Xiao Tianhai in the Yunwu marsh. But as for his exact location or any clearer news, there was absolutely nothing. Helpless, Ji Yuan had to go out to the streets himself to investigate. But the results were no different from what old diviner Li had said. Just as he was about to head back, he unexpectedly ran into Lu Wan. Compared to her previous lively self, she now seemed incredibly cold. She looked at everyone with an indifferent gaze. Ji Yuan remembered what she had said last time, so he didn't go up to greet her. They only nodded to each other from a distance, acknowledging each other's presence. That night, Lin Hu, the fishmonger from the docks, returned and knocked on Ji Yuan's courtyard gate. Once inside, he carefully pulled a letter from his robes. He lowered his voice, saying Lu Wan had asked him to deliver this. Ji Yuan couldn't help but be surprised. He had just seen her at the market during the day, yet she hadn't said anything directly. She had to use a messenger. It immediately made him think of something. He kept a calm expression. He took the letter from Lin Hu and warned him never to tell anyone about this. Lin Hu nodded vigorously, saying he wouldn't even tell Wu Qin. After seeing Lin Hu off, Ji Yuan went back inside. He opened the letter. The handwriting was elegant, and it carried a faint scent of pear blossoms. The letter stated that Xiao Tianhai was currently hiding near Qingba Pool. The Qin family already knew his location. They had dispatched Qin Wei, a 6th-level Qi refining cultivator, along with 2 other 6th-level guards. Furthermore, there seemed to be another grudge between him and the Qin family. It wasn't just about Lu Lizhi. So if Ji Yuan went there, he had to be extremely careful. After reading it, Ji Yuan wasn't surprised that Lu Wan knew about Xiao Tianhai's whereabouts, since she was now a member of the Qin family, and with her talent for drawing talismans. The Qin family certainly wouldn't mistreat her. What truly surprised him was why she would proactively tell him this. Ji Yuan remembered very clearly when Xiao Tianhai first fled the Yunwu marsh. When he met Lu Wan at the market, she had warned him to stay away from Xiao Tianhai. Yet now she was taking the initiative to tell him Xiao Tianhai's location. It made the whole situation feel a bit off. After some thought, Ji Yuan considered that this might be a test from Lu Wan. She wanted to see if he was truly a cold, solitary cultivator or someone with a heart. That was the optimistic guess. But if he thought the worst, it meant she had truly joined them, surrendered to the Qin family. And he was the sacrifice she had chosen. In that case, she might have conspired with the Qin family to set an ambush, to capture both him and Xiao Tianhai in one go. Of course, that possibility was slim. Besides, Lu Wan didn't seem like that kind of person. Furthermore, on the surface, he and the Qin family had no grievances. As for Lu Lizhi's death, even if the Qin family knew now, they should be able to distinguish what was important and know how to weigh the pros and cons. Ji Yuan also considered the possibility that she was intentionally stirring up conflict between him and the Qin family to weaken them. Or perhaps it wasn't that complicated at all. She just knew he and Xiao Tianhai were on good terms, so she gave him the tip, despite the many possibilities. The good thing was that he finally knew where Xiao Tianhai was. As for whether he should go to Qingba Pool to find him, he already had his answer. He absolutely had to go. If this were decades or centuries after his transmigration, his mindset might have changed. He might have become like many other cultivators, ready to abandon friends. But currently, he had only been here for a short 6 months. He couldn't bring himself to do such a thing yet. Ji Yuan's mindset was still one of reciprocity. If someone gives me a peach, I return a plum. Furthermore, the Qin family had only sent 3 6th-level Qi refining cultivators. With his Yin Ghost formation, he felt that even if he couldn't kill them, protecting himself wouldn't be a problem. Besides, he had already planned to visit Qingba Pool anyway. because he hadn't forgotten that it was the source of cold iron sand. Perhaps the opportunity to upgrade his fish pond lay there. Once his mind was made up, Ji Yuan casually burned the letter. Then he sank his consciousness into his storage bag. He began to analyze his current situation. He had a fair amount of spirit stones left. Even though he used them daily for cultivation, he still had 79 left. Regarding talismans, for a 6th-level Qi refining cultivator like him, mid-grade talismans no longer held much value. They could only be used for basic attacks. He currently had 2 high-grade talismans, 1 water evasion talisman for escaping and 1 golden seal talisman for attacking. The reason he bought the golden seal talisman was because he had been hit by one before. He had experienced its power firsthand. As for pills, he had a few spirit gathering pills for cultivation, 5 blood essence pills for emergencies, and 20 spirit recovery pills to restore energy during battle. The effect of the spirit recovery pills wasn't very strong, but because they could restore spiritual energy, they weren't cheap. 1 pill cost 5 spirit stones. Even so, Ji Yuan bought a few occasionally, and had managed to stockpile 20. His artifacts were still the same old ones, because if he bought more, he wouldn't be able to control them all right now. Thinking this, he decided to head back to the market to buy 2 more high-grade talismans. Even though it was already dark, Ji Yuan didn't care, as long as a late-stage Qi refining cultivator didn't show up. A 6th-level cultivator like him had nothing to fear in the market. He went to the backyard, looking at the flock of green phoenix chickens running around, the half-grown spirit pig, and the pond of semi-spirit fish in the front yard. Ji Yuan recalled his previous trips. At most, they lasted a few days. The fish and chickens would be fine without food for that long. But this time was different. Setting aside whether he could save Qiu Tianhai, the delay would certainly be long, at least 10 days or more. And 10 days without anyone to feed them definitely wouldn't work. So, after some thought, he decided to deal with all of them. These green phoenix chickens had been laying eggs for a long time. It was time to replace them anyway. The semi-spirit fish were even easier to handle. He could just buy more when he returned. Furthermore, a few ideas had popped into his head. For instance, regarding the chicken coop. Could he raise some actual spirit birds to lay eggs, instead of these halfway creatures like the green phoenix chickens? Because the tiny bit of spiritual energy from these eggs was no longer enough for his cultivation. No sooner said than done. Under the white water flying sword, the semi-spirit fish and green phoenix chickens were all turned into carcasses. Even the spirit pig he'd only had for a few days was killed with a single strike. He realized that when he wasn't around, there was no one to take care of things. It made him see that he really needed to find a puppet-making technique soon, though he heard that the path of puppets and the path of artifacts were somewhat related. It made him lament that he couldn't be in 2 places at once. Afterward, that very night, Ji Yuan went to the market. First, he went to the docks to sell the semi-spirit fish. Then he prepaid the rent for his residence for the next month. Next, he went to the chicken breeder to sell the green phoenix chickens. The breeder was heartbroken to see Ji Yuan had killed all the chickens at once. It was as if his own sons had been slaughtered. It wasn't until Ji Yuan promised to buy from him again next time that his mood improved slightly. Once he finished handling these matters, Ji Yuan went to the 100 Treasure Pavilion to buy a high-grade demon suppressing talisman and an iron wall talisman, with 4 high-grade talismans in hand. Even if he truly encountered a late-stage Qi refining cultivator, he had the confidence to hold his own. This trip cost him a total of 58 spirit stones. He kept the rest for the Yin Ghost formation and spiritual energy recovery. After leaving the market, Ji Yuan didn't go home, but followed the water map, heading straight for Qingba Pool, pushing the Black Wind boat to its limit. It wasn't until noon the next day that Ji Yuan saw a strange body of water deep within the Yunwu Marsh. The water in the Yunwu Marsh was usually green, but the water he saw now was an unusually pale blue. The outer area was that pale blue, but a few miles further in were countless islands clustered together. The water inside turned a much deeper shade of blue. Just by getting close, Ji Yuan felt the temperature here was clearly several degrees lower. This was Qingba Pool, a place filled with cold abyss water. The deeper one went, the lower the temperature became. It was said that the central waters could even freeze a middle-stage Qi refining cultivator to death. Besides cold iron sand, this place also had spirit fish and monsters that preferred cold water. and their strength was much greater than the spirit fish found outside. Additionally, there were fishermen who came here to dig for sand. In the last 2 years, the water dragon sect had been aggressively buying cold iron sand, so more and more people came here to dig. A small market was even starting to form. Furthermore, Ji Yuan had heard that most of the sand diggers here were desperate outlaws from the various wards of the Yunwu Marsh, a prime example being Qiu Tianhai. So it made sense for him to be here. After entering this dangerous area, Ji Yuan slowed the boat down, though he hadn't summoned the dragon scale shield yet. His left hand already held a lightning strike talisman, and his right hand gripped a golden armor talisman. Both hands were hidden within his sleeves. He didn't rush deep into Qingba Pool, but first steered the boat to scout the outer perimeter. But before he had gone a few miles, he sensed people fighting among several small islands ahead. From the spiritual energy fluctuations, they were also 2 middle-stage qi refining cultivators. Ji Yuan originally wanted to stay away, but just as he was about to leave, he unexpectedly heard a familiar voice. The person laughed maniacally, mocking the opponent, saying that even though they were at the 6th level, they were nothing but a paper tiger. Ji Yuan immediately recognized it as Qiu Tianhai. He was actually here, and he was fighting someone. Without a moment's hesitation, Ji Yuan steered the black wind boat down to the surface and charged toward the cluster of islands. Even with a water-repelling talisman on him, he still felt that the lake water here was indeed much colder than elsewhere. The black wind boat cut through the depths. Even though Ji Yuan intentionally slowed down, it only took a few breaths to reach the combat zone. Above the surface, spiritual energy was chaotic, but beneath the water, it was calm and still. Aside from sensing the slight turbulence in the energy, he didn't notice anything else. Looking up from the bottom of the lake, the midday sun only allowed him to see 2 Dharma boats floating on the surface. He couldn't see anything else clearly. The water blocked their auras. He couldn't even tell which one was Qiu Tianhai. Ji Yuan briefly thought about just rushing up for a sneak attack, since they were both at the 6th level. He was confident he could easily kill the opponent with a surprise strike. But just as he was about to act, he saw one Dharma boat flee at high speed. Then a strange voice called out, jeering that Qiu Tianhai only knew how to run. Qiu Tianhai laughed loudly in response, cursing that if the other guy wanted to kill him, of course he had to run. Though his voice was still boisterous, it carried an undeniable hint of weakness, proving he was injured. Seeing the remaining Dharma boat above about to give chase, Ji Yuan finally made his move. He pushed the black wind boat to full power. His figure shot out like a black arrow. In an instant, he broke the surface. The black wind boat hovered in the air. Ji Yuan's white robes fluttered in the wind. He formed a seal with one hand, activating his artifact. White water gurgled. A pale blue water screen appeared on the surface and in the air. At the same time, he clearly saw the man pursuing Qiu Tianhai. It was a man in his 50s or 60s, wearing black robes, with a slightly balding head, and a fierce countenance. His left hand held an iron shield. His right hand held a mace. At that moment, when he saw Ji Yuan suddenly burst from the water, his face was filled with terror. White water waves surged in an instant, trapping him as if in a quagmire. The black wind boat swept over his head. Ji Yuan used both hands to perform the 2nd level of the water drop finger, Stone Piercer, firing 6 hair-thin streaks of spiritual light. The old man, surnamed Lin, reacted incredibly fast. He immediately used his iron shield to deflect Ji Yuan's white water-flying sword. Then he swung his mace with his right hand. Spinning the weapon into a blur, he blocked the water drop finger. But just as he thought he had survived the ambush, he suddenly let out a grunt. His eyes bulged. The mace in his hand kept spinning for momentum, but the iron shield went limp. He had deflected the flying sword, but the bewildering needle hidden within the blade had followed his mace's movement and shot upward. The needle pierced right through his brow. The needle claimed his life. It had never failed. The white water-flying sword, originally only 2 fingers wide, transformed into a 3-foot-long blade. With a single sweep, it took his head off. Only then did the black wind boat settle onto the water. Ji Yuan flicked out 2 drops of corpse-melting water. One drop landed on the body. The other landed on the head that still had its eyes wide open. Under the effect of the water, both dissolved into nothingness. From the moment he burst out of the water to the successful ambush, Less than a single breath had passed. In the distance, Xiao Tianhai noticed the commotion and turned around. He saw the black boat floating on the water, and on it, a figure both strange and familiar. For a moment, Xiao Tianhai couldn't believe his eyes. He couldn't believe Ji Yuan had actually appeared here. And he certainly couldn't believe Ji Yuan had the strength to instantly kill a 6th-level qi refining cultivator. Seeing that Xiao Tianhai was unharmed, Ji Yuan felt a wave of relief. But just as he was gathering the loot and preparing to regroup, his eyes caught something on a nearby island. He discovered 2 cultivators still standing there, watching. His mind raced. Ji Yuan immediately shouted, pretending to be from the Qin family. He claimed Xiao Tianhai was the Qin family's target, and that it wasn't anyone else's business. At the same time, he barked a question about Xiao Tianhai's whereabouts. Hearing this, Xiao Tianhai understood Ji Yuan's intent immediately. He stopped running and drew the 2 crescent blades from his back. He pretended to be cold, replying that he killed Qin family members like dogs. With that, he hurled the 2 crescent blades. They spun like 2 full moons, rushing to crush Ji Yuan. The scene looked incredibly perilous. Ji Yuan played along, summoning the dragon scale shield. He forced his boat forward. The white water flying sword circled him. In an instant, it knocked the 2 crescent blades aside. Before Xiao Tianhai could even react, Ji Yuan was upon him. He landed a powerful punch to Qiu's chest, sending him flying backward. At the same time, the boat flickered so that Xiao Tianhai landed steadily on the Black Wind boat. Xiao Tianhai seemed like he wanted to get up and fight back. But the white water flying sword was already hovering right before his brow. If he made even the slightest move, the blade would drop. Ji Yuan then collected Xiao Tianhai's belongings. He tossed 2 spirit stones toward the 2 onlookers on the island. He even cupped his hands from a distance, using the name Qin Wei to thank them for keeping watch. The 2 cultivators received the spirit stones. Naturally, they softened up. They immediately cupped their hands and smiled back, congratulating him on capturing the bandit. Ji Yuan didn't know why the 3 Qin family members who left first hadn't arrived yet. But now that he had regrouped with Xiao Tianhai, he considered it a success. He cupped his hands slightly and took Xiao Tianhai away in the opposite direction. Once they were a good distance away, he asked in a low voice where they should go. Xiao Tianhai told him to keep going straight, until they reached an island shaped like the character for man, then turned northwest. After traveling quite a bit, Xiao Tianhai asked irritably if he could move the flying sword yet, because it felt like Ji Yuan was intentionally getting back at him. Ji Yuan acted as if he had just remembered, casually mentioning he also had a mid-grade flying sword. Xiao Tianhai gave in, admitting he already knew how powerful Ji Yuan was. Afterward, he took back his boat and crescent blades from Ji Yuan. Then he pulled a 100-herb pill from his storage bag. But Ji Yuan tossed him a small piece of blood essence instead, telling him his medicine was too slow and to use this. Xiao Tianhai looked down at it, then back at Ji Yuan. He was stunned. He remarked that Ji Yuan was richer than a bandit like him. Ji Yuan just laughed, saying being a bandit didn't actually pay that well. But he quickly stopped laughing, reminding Xiao Tianhai to stop talking nonsense and recover, because 3 6th-level qi refining cultivators from the Qin family were on their way. If they crossed paths, even a 5th-level cultivator like him would have to pitch in. Getting down to business, Xiao Tianhai hurriedly swallowed the blood essence. He grabbed 2 spirit stones and began to slowly recover. An hour later, Ji Yuan finally saw the man-shaped island ahead. He circled it and turned northwest. But the further they went, the more he felt something was wrong. Those 3 from the Qin family had left so much earlier than him. Yet he was the one who found Xiao Tianhai first. Ji Yuan didn't believe in mere coincidence. He slowed the boat and turned to ask if anyone else knew about Xiao's hiding spot. Xiao Tianhai instinctively started to say no. But before he finished, he remembered someone. It was Xiong Youfu from the neighboring Jingda ward, a man he shared a life-and-death bond with. A few days ago, when he was heavily injured, he had asked this man to help him buy some pills and food, so the man knew where he was hiding. Hearing this, Ji Yuan pondered and said they couldn't go to that hiding spot for now. They should find somewhere else and then figure things out. Xiao Tianhai didn't argue pointlessly. He didn't say things like Xiong Youfu wasn't a problem or that he was trustworthy. He only asked whether they should run or kill. He would follow Ji Yuan's lead. Ji Yuan's instinct was to say kill. but the words caught in his throat. You only have one life. There was absolutely no room for error. With things like drawing talismans or making pills, he could fail countless times. But in a life-and-death struggle, you could only fail once. So in the end, he chose to run. If they could run, they would. If they couldn't, then they'd kill. That was his principle. Xiao Tianhai agreed. When Ji Yuan asked if there was anywhere else to go, Xiao Tianhai mentioned a place. Heishui Ward, the most chaotic of all the wards in the Yunwu Marsh. Just like this Qingba Pool, a mix of dragons and snakes. He had always hidden there in the past. Ji Yuan thought that made sense. He was about to change direction, to take Xiao Tianhai to Heishui Ward first. Once things were settled, he would return to Tsingtou Market. But right then, from the other side of the island, loud shouts for Old Tian suddenly rang out. Immediately after, a green dharma boat skimmed across the water. A burly man stood on the boat. The moment he saw the man, Xiao Tianhai stood up. The newcomer was Xiong Youfu, the good friend he had mentioned. Xiong Youfu first glanced at Ji Yuan. A flash of panic flickered in his eyes, but he quickly turned back to Xiao Tianhai. He said he heard there was movement from the Qin family. He thought someone was coming, so he wanted to check on Xiao. He said it was good to see he was okay. He then urged them both to head back quickly, telling them not to wander around outside. If it weren't for Ji Yuan's earlier warning and suspicion, Xiao Tianhai certainly wouldn't have thought twice. But unfortunately, he was already suspicious. He looked at Xiong Youfu, saying in a low voice that he wouldn't be going back there. Hearing that they weren't going back, Xiong Youfu immediately asked anxiously where they were going. He argued there was no safer place nearby. Xiao Tianhai said nothing, while Ji Yuan had already silently linked his mind to the flying sword in his storage bag. The man before them was only at the 5th level of qi refining. Dealing with him wouldn't take much effort, but he still couldn't be careless. Xiong Youfu seemed even more worried about Xiao Tianhai's safety, repeatedly pressing him on where he planned to go. Xiao Tianhai's voice grew deep. His expression turned bitter. He asked if even Xiong Youfu wanted to stab him in the back. Xiong Youfu's gaze immediately turned frantic. Xiao Tianhai shook his head, bringing up the incident at the Heishui Ward ferry. He reminded him that he was the one who had saved Xiong Youfu's life. And yet now, the man was turning around to betray him. Xiong Youfu's lips trembled. Finally, he gritted his teeth and confessed he'd been possessed by greed. All because the Qin family had offered too much. As soon as he finished, Xiao Tianhai hurled his 2 crescent blades. The blades carved 2 full moons in the air, pincering Xiong Youfu from both sides. At the same time, he called for Ji Yuan to join the attack. He was worried he couldn't take Xiong Youfu down instantly, and didn't want to risk any more trouble. So ganging up on him was naturally the best way. There was no need for a fair duel. The moment Xiao Tianhai moved, Ji Yuan struck as well. The flying sword he had prepared earlier shot forward. At the same time, he extended his right hand, tapping the air several times in rapid succession. With each tap, a pale blue streak of spiritual light shot out, aiming straight for Xiong Youfu's limbs and brow. His left hand, hidden in his sleeve, also flicked a finger, executing Stone Piercer, firing 3 hair-thin streaks of spiritual light, this time aiming for the opponent's chest. In an instant, nearly 10 attacks converged on Xiong Youfu. Even if he used all his talismans and artifacts, he couldn't withstand such a coordinated assault. Ji Yuan's flying sword alone knocked away his mirror-like defensive artifact. Then Xiao Tianhai's crescent blade swept through, instantly severing his head. The head flew into the air. Xiao Tianhai's expression didn't change. He only coldly remarked that the debt for saving his life was now paid in full. Ji Yuan replied while telling him to hurry and pack up. But before he could finish, something shot out from Xiong Youfu's chest toward the sky. Ji Yuan knew something was wrong. His flying sword chased after it, but it was one step too late. A brilliant silver flower bloomed in the sky, making his face darken. Xiao Tianhai explained immediately that it was a little toy made by the artifact refiners in Heishui Ward, called the Death Signal Firework. Once the owner died, it would automatically launch and explode. Its main purpose was to alert the Qin family of their location. The two talked while never stopping their movements. Xiao Tianhai handled the body disposal, while Ji Yuan quickly gathered the valuables. In a single breath, the Black Wind boat dove underwater, carrying both of them away from the scene. Even their auras were completely masked by the lake water, leaving nothing behind. Once underwater, Xiao Tianhai pointed in a direction, signaling Ji Yuan to head toward Heishui Ward. But Ji Yuan only glanced at him and shook his head. He immediately turned the boat in a different direction. The two of them wandered beneath the surface. However, no matter where they went, Ji Yuan stayed within the bounds of Qingba Pool. He didn't go far at all. Half a day later, when the water-repelling talisman wore off, the two of them finally surfaced, finding a small, uninhabited island to hide on. As soon as they landed, Xiao Tianhai asked why they hadn't gone to Heishui Ward. Ji Yuan said that the first reaction after killing someone would be to flee to Heishui Ward, and the Qin family would likely think the same. So it was better to do the opposite. By hiding right here in Qingba Pool, they probably wouldn't expect them to be so bold. As he spoke, he pulled out his usual disguise kit from his storage bag. Xiao Tianhai nodded slowly, but he still asked what if the Qin family also realized they were hiding in Qingba Pool. Ji Yuan took some ash from an alchemy furnace and smeared it on his face. He said that if they were going to be caught anyway, it didn't matter if it was here or in Heishui Ward. At that point, they'd just have to fight for their lives. Xiao Tianhai nodded at that, saying that fighting for his life was what he did best. Then the two of them began to disguise themselves on the spot. This kind of disguise was still very effective against qi refining cultivators who lacked divine sense, but it would be completely useless against a foundation establishment cultivator. During this, Ji Yuan asked why Xiao Tianhai had thought of coming to Qingba Pool. Xiao Tianhai said the reason was simple. He came here to mine. The cold iron sand here was incredibly valuable. Mining here paid better than fishing. It was just too dangerous for most people to dare come. Xiao Tianhai stuck thick black whiskers onto his chin and temples. It was almost exactly what Ji Yuan had in mind. He then asked why Ji Yuan had gone back to the market to find him, and even let others find out. Xiao Tianhai's hands faltered for a moment, but he quickly hid it. He said it was nothing. He just hadn't been back in a long time and wanted to visit Ji Yuan. Ji Yuan noticed, but didn't press him. Instead, he changed the subject, relaying old diviner Li's message that he had agreed. Xiao Tianhai only gave a cold laugh, saying it was too late for those words now. He didn't seem surprised by the answer at all. When Ji Yuan asked if old diviner Li was his uncle, Xiao Tianhai confirmed he was his eldest uncle. After saying that, he let out a long sigh and stood up. In just a few moments, he had transformed from a young man into a rugged, burly fellow, with his robes hanging open. His face looked fleshy and coarse. He had even changed into a different set of clothes. Afterward, he recounted how his parents and his second uncle's entire family were killed by the Qin family. He had wanted to find his uncle to seek revenge together, but the man was a coward. He didn't have the guts. He refused to agree for the longest time. So in the end, he had to take matters into his own hands. When Ji Yuan asked how he had taken his revenge, Xiao Tianhai smirked, saying the Qin family had a third young master who liked men. Ji Yuan instinctively asked if the man had taken an interest in him. Don't be fooled by Xiao Tianhai's current bearded look. His original appearance, though a bit behind Ji Yuan's, was still considered handsome among the fishermen. Xiao Tianhai saw the reaction and knew Ji Yuan was thinking the wrong thing. So he explained that it wasn't like that. He had proactively offered himself to trick the man. Afterward, he said coldly that he had severed the man's family jewels with a single blade, effectively ending one of the Qin family's bloodlines. Hearing this, Ji Yuan understood immediately. No wonder the Qin family was hunting him so relentlessly. Compared to the Qin family's direct bloodline, killing someone like Lu Lizi was truly nothing. Knowing this, Ji Yuan didn't ask any more questions. The two of them began to divide the loot. They had killed 2 people. Both were bandits, but the results weren't as rich as Ji Yuan had imagined. According to Xiao Tianhai's explanation, those who struggled in Qingba Pool lived on the edge every day. They were constantly fighting, so any good items they got were used up immediately. As for old Captain Wu, whom they had killed together before, he was rich because he operated near the shore. He didn't have many enemies, so he could accumulate wealth. The Ghost Island Lord was even more of an exception, because he possessed the Yin Ghost formation, which even late-stage Qi refining cultivators didn't want to mess with. So in the end, after splitting it, Ji Yuan only received a mere 19 spirit stones. Regarding artifacts, he took Xiong Youfu's bright mirror. It was like a heart-protecting mirror. but it had a very strange way of both defending and attacking. It could be used as a defensive artifact, where he could pour spiritual energy into it to fire a powerful beam of light from the surface. It just consumed a lot of energy. Additionally, there was the goal of Ji Yuan's trip, cold iron sand, the specialty of Qingba Pool. Both of their storage bags contained some, but the amount wasn't large. Combined, it was only half a caddy. Ji Yuan needed it urgently, so he just told Xiao Tianhai and took it all. Not only that, Xiao Tianhai had another 3 ounces of cold iron sand, which he took out and gave entirely to Ji Yuan. He didn't ask what Ji Yuan needed it for. He simply saw that Ji Yuan needed it and gave it to him. But Ji Yuan didn't let him lose out. The mid-grade fishing boat left by the old man, surnamed Lin, plus an offensive artifact, the cold iron spike, were both given to Xiao Tianhai, who was currently lacking artifacts. Thus, the amount of cold iron sand Ji Yuan possessed reached 1 caddy and 8 ounces. After eating and drinking, Ji Yuan and Xiao Tianhai entered the true heart of Qingba Pool. Inside, the islands were much denser than on the outside, varying in size, scattered like stars in the sky. On the largest island, quite a few houses had been built. One could see people walking around with the naked eye. Ji Yuan narrowed his eyes, discovering that there were even cultivators setting up stalls there. Since Xiao Tianhai was quite familiar with the place, he explained that it was the largest island in Qingba Pool, called Qingba Island. A small market had been established on it. Pills, talismans, and all sorts of items were sold there. It was just that the prices were 20% higher than the markets on the shore. Furthermore, the Water Dragon sect had set up a shop there specifically to buy cold iron sand, and the price was the same as the markets outside. Hearing this, Ji Yuan finally understood why there were so few cultivators selling cold iron sand at Singa Market. It turned out it was all being intercepted here. He then asked where the two of them would stay. Xiao Tianhai said they just needed to find a small, uninhabited island. After their disguises were set, the two of them steered their boats inside. Ji Yuan still used the Black Wind boat, while Xiao Tianhai switched to the mid-grade fishing boat from the old man, surnamed Lin. They moved and stopped, their eyes constantly scanning the islands on both sides. Half a day later, they found a spot. They finally found a small island tucked away in the southeast corner of Qingba Pond. The island wasn't large. By Ku Yuan's estimate, it was only about 100 square meters. Aside from the fine sandy beach along the shore, the rest of the island was covered in brownish-gray rocks. Even the 2 small huts on the island were built from stone. The stone blocks were stacked together haphazardly. They couldn't block the wind because the stones weren't flat. There were gaps in many places. At best, they could barely keep the rain out. Fortunately, everyone here was a seasoned traveler of the martial world, so they didn't sweat the small stuff. The 2 stone huts were just enough for each of them to have their own space. As soon as Xiao Tianhai entered, he used a fire spell to burn away the cobwebs and dust on the walls. Then he cast a water spell to wash everything down. As for Ku Yuan, he quietly activated the level 1 effect of his abode. In a single breath, the entire house looked brand new. Even some of the gaps between the stones automatically sealed themselves. Only a few large openings remained that couldn't be fixed. Once the cleaning effect was done, he silently deactivated the architectural effect. With a place to stay, the two of them finally settled in. Before Ku Yuan could even sit down, Xiao Tianhai finished cleaning and said he was going out to scout the situation. Since they were both in disguise, Ku Yuan wasn't too worried and let him go. But less than an hour later, Xiao Tianhai came rushing back. He said something was up. Ku Yuan snapped out of his second-level meditation on the billowing wave sword art. He quietly tucked away the white paper beneath him that had the words Enlightenment Room written on it. Then he asked for an update. Xiao Tianhai lowered his voice and reported that 3 members of the Qin family had arrived at Qingba Pond. Ku Yuan was a bit surprised, as he thought he had done the unexpected by staying. He didn't think the enemy would guess they hadn't left. 3 level 6 Qi refining cultivators definitely put a lot of pressure on Xiao Tianhai, to the point where he thought running away was the best option. He knew he couldn't take them alone and was worried about dragging Ku Yuan down with him. But Ku Yuan just chuckled. He said it was rare for Qingba Pond to have such a good show to watch. Naturally, they had to go see it. Hearing this, Xiao Tianhai immediately understood. The person the Qin family wanted was Xiao Tianhai. It had nothing to do with Xiao Lao-san in his current disguise. He secretly admitted that Ku Yuan was no fool. On the contrary, he was quite cunning. Seeing that Ku Yuan wasn't afraid, his own fear vanished. The two of them then approached the island where the commotion was coming from. Sure enough, as soon as they arrived, Ku Yuan spotted the two cultivators who had taken his spirit stones earlier. Right now, they were flanking a man in black robes, sucking up to him. They were talking in hushed tones. Ku Yuan thought to himself that these two really took his money and did nothing. Looks like he'd have to find a chance to get it back later. That man in the black robes must be the leader of the Qin group. Qin Wei. Behind Qin Wei stood two tall, middle-aged men. Both were at level 6 Qi refining. Their dark gazes swept over the crowd of onlookers without any restraint. When they saw Ku Yuan and Qiu Tianhai arrive, they gave them a particularly sharp look. But it was only for a moment before they looked away. Without the divine sense of a foundation establishment cultivator, it was very hard to see through this disguise with the naked eye. After hearing the report from the two cultivators, Qin Wei first cursed under his breath, then loudly announced that if anyone had news of the two imposters, just report it to the Qin family, and they'd be rewarded with 20 spirit stones. Anyone who brought Qiu Tianhai's head would get 60, and capturing him alive would net 100 spirit stones. Once Qin Wei finished his announcement, the surrounding cultivators cheered in response. 20 spirit stones just for a tip. A reward like that was undeniably generous. Ku Yuan couldn't help but marvel at how filthy rich the Qin family was. Hearing this, Qiu Tianhai couldn't help but think of Xiong Youfu, the man who stabbed him in the back just because the reward was too high. Then, the three from the Qin family powered up their spirit boat. Guided by those two cultivators, they headed toward the waters where Ku Yuan had previously killed Old Dog Lin. The other cultivators looking for excitement followed suit. Kiski Vik Go Yuan, the actual killer, was now heading back to the scene with Qiu Tianhai to keep watching the drama unfold. About half an hour later, the two of them returned to the waters from the other day. The three Qin family members, led by those two cultivators, looked around for a while. Then they continued chasing in the direction Ku Yuan had left before. Ku Yuan, Qiu Tianhai, and the rest of the cultivators followed closely behind. The whole crowd searched everywhere. Their logic was simple. As soon as they found Qiu Tianhai, they wouldn't even talk. They just rained down countless spells first. Who knows, they might just get lucky and take his life. That would be way more profitable than mining here. Too bad they wandered around all night without seeing a soul. It wasn't until the break of dawn the next day that the three Qin family members were forced to temporarily return to the market district. After they left, Ku Yuan and Qiu Tianhai gradually settled back in. The two of them rested there for a day. During that time, Ku Yuan listened to Qiu Tianhai tell many stories about Qingba Pond and cold iron sand. Legend has it that in the deepest part of Qingba Pond, there's a vein of cold iron sand. Every so often, a phenomenon called the Earth Dragon turning over occurs at the bottom. Whenever the Earth Dragon turns, many tunnels open up on the lake bed, leading straight to the ore vein. A violent, freezing chill blasts out from these tunnels. It's so powerful that even a mid-level Qi refining cultivator would die instantly upon contact. So whenever the Earth Dragon turns, every cultivator at the bottom has to get out as fast as they possibly can. Each time it happens, some cold iron sand is swept out from the vein. The ore is scattered. That's why most miners at Qingba Pond look for the cold iron sand that gets washed out. The reason I say most is because after the Earth Dragon finishes turning, a small portion of the tunnels collapse and get blocked. Once blocked, that tunnel becomes a dead cave. Inside, not only is there no more freezing chill from the vein, but a massive amount of cold iron sand gets trapped. So, if you stumble upon one of these dead caves, you've basically hit the jackpot. Especially with the price of cold iron sand skyrocketing lately. As for digging down through a dead cave to find the main vein, without foundation establishment strength, even if you actually reach the vein, you'd just be digging your own grave. The bottom of Qingba Pond is mostly mud and sand. The light blue cold iron sand is mixed into this layer of lake silt. To get it out, you need an iron rake and a sand sieve. Luckily, those were in the storage bags of Xiong Youfu and Old Dog Lin. That night, in a market district, after returning from Qingba Pond, Qin Wei met with his father, Qin Long. After hearing the full report of the trip, Qin Long analyzed the situation. He figured Xiao Tianhai was either still hiding at Qingba Pond, or he had headed back to Blackwater Ward. But he personally leaned toward the possibility that he was still lurking at Qingba Pond, trying to play the darkness under the lamp trick on them. Besides, over at Blackwater Ward, the Qin family had a deal with the Chu family. They would help keep an eye out. If there was any news, they'd naturally report back. The Chu family was similar to the Qin family in the market district. The great families always had a lot of dealings. They helped each other out to keep their position secure. Qin Wei nodded at that. He said he had left Zhang Kai and Hu Da at Qingba Pond in disguise. He also spent a lot of spirit stones to bribe others. The moment there was any news of Qiao Tianhai, they would report back immediately. Qin Long gave a slight nod. He reminded him that the old master had entrusted the matter of the third brother to the two of them. So, they had to get it done. Qin Wei affirmed that his brother's grudge must be paid in blood. Even though he said that, Qin Long always felt that the reason the old master was hunting Qiao Tianhai so relentlessly must be something else. He had asked once, but since the old master didn't say, he didn't dare ask again. The next morning, Ku Yuan and Qiao Tianhai woke up early and headed to the lake, because today they were going underwater. This was technically the first time Ku Yuan was going underwater to make a living since he transmigrated here 6 months ago. He didn't have to go himself to catch spirit fish, but if he wanted cold iron sand, he had to rely on himself. Ku Yuan steered the Black Wind boat, while Qiao Tianhai steered the mid-grade spirit boat he took from Old Dog Lin. After diving deep to the bottom, the two of them split up. As soon as he hit the lake bed, Ku Yuan put away his spirit boat. Then he crouched on the sandy bottom, feeling the biting cold all around him. He strained his eyes to find a trace of light blue in the murky silt. Any cold iron sand on the surface had definitely been picked clean. So, if you want to harvest, there was only one way. Ku Yuan took out the iron rake and the sand sieve. First, he used spiritual power to rake the sand a few times. When that didn't seem enough, he used the sieve to filter the lake sand he'd just dug up. He repeated this over and over, moving forward inch by inch. Half an hour passed in the blink of an eye. Ku Yuan was still mechanically repeating the filtering process. Just as he was about to move on, he caught a glimpse of a light blue shimmer out of the corner of his eye. He immediately knew he finally had something. He quickly and carefully filtered the sand in that spot. Finally, looking at the half ounce of iron sand in his hand, he let out a sigh of relief. At least he got something, even if it was a tiny amount. But after getting that half ounce, it seemed his luck with this stuff had run out. For most of the rest of the day, he didn't see so much as a shadow of cold iron sand. By the time he surfaced at dusk, that half ounce was all he had to show for it. Qiao Tianhai shot up from the depths right after him. They casually asked each other about their results. Ku Yuan said he only got half an ounce. Qiao Tianhai got over an ounce. A bit better than him. Since Qiao Tianhai had spent some time here before, he had more experience. It was only natural he'd find more. He comforted Ku Yuan, saying this was normal for a first-timer, because during his first few days here, he didn't even see a speck of cold iron sand. Neither of them had much experience, nor did they know the fixed spots where the sand usually settled. So, this outcome was perfectly normal. That was the logic. But when the second day underwater yielded the same tiny amount, Ku Yuan started losing interest. His usually calm mind began to stir. Upgrading the fish pond required 5 pounds of cold iron sand, and right now, he was still over 3 pounds short. If he only dug up this much every day, who knows how many years it would take. Thinking about it, he started considering just spending some spirit stones to buy it from others. This was Qingba Pond, after all, the main source of cold iron sand. Buying some right here shouldn't be a problem. He even had a bolder thought. Just pick a few villains and kill them. Rob the cold iron sand right out of their hands. Everyone in the world could be a bandit cultivator. So Ku Yuan certainly could too. The risk with that method was having a fight. But the benefit was that the water dragon sect wouldn't easily find out. After weighing his options, Ku Yuan decided to try buying some first. He'd wait until he was truly desperate before doing anything else. On the third day, Qiao Tianhai called him to go mining again. So Ku Yuan decided to give the water one more shot. This time the harvest was a bit better, but still only about an ounce. The yield was too low, so Ku Yuan gave up. On the fourth day, he didn't go underwater. Instead, he wandered around Qingba Pond. Whenever he saw a cultivator alone, he'd go up and chat. Then he'd ask if they had any cold iron sand for sale. The price he offered was naturally the same as the water dragon's sex. Because facing such a massive power, he didn't dare start a price war. But buying it wasn't that easy either. For one, everyone was finding very little. Second, he didn't dare buy it openly. So in a whole day, he didn't even get half a pound. Even so, he was satisfied, buying half a pound a day. In less than 10 days, he could upgrade the fish pond. By then, if the Qin family still hadn't shown up, he could return to the market district and continue his cultivation in peace. At dusk, not long after Ku Yuan returned home, he saw Qiu Tianhai's spirit boat blast out of the water. While still in midair, he put the boat away and slammed hard onto the ground. He winced in pain. The moment he hit the ground, he rushed into Ku Yuan's house. His eyes were beaming with joy. He pulled a cloth bag from his storage bag, set it on the table, and opened it. Inside was nothing but wet cold iron sand. A huge pile of it. Far more than what Ku Yuan had bought today. Ku Yuan stepped up to weigh it. It had to be at least a pound. He was shocked that Qiu Tianhai had dug up more than he had bought. He even suspected the guy had robbed someone. Qiu Tianhai immediately signaled for him to be quiet. Then he whispered for Ku Yuan to follow him underwater to see his big treasure. Ku Yuan looked at Qiu Tianhai skeptically. That phrasing just didn't sound right no matter how you sliced it. But Qiu Tianhai urged him on. He shoved the pound of cold iron sand into Ku Yuan's hand and dove back toward Qingba Pond. Looking at Qiu Tianhai's excited back, Ku Yuan guessed he really did have something good. Otherwise, how could he make over a pound of cold iron sand in a single day? Never mind digging. Even with Ku Yuan spending spirit stones to buy it, he couldn't necessarily get that much. So what exactly was this treasure? Ku Yuan glanced back at the stone hut. Making sure everything was secure, he followed him to the shore. First, he slapped a water-repelling talisman on himself. Then he summoned the Black Wind Boat and Dove. He followed Qiu Tianhai into the depths of Qingba Pond. Qiu Tianhai was already waiting at the bottom. Ku Yuan steered the boat over to him. Even though they both had the talismans, these low-grade ones only barely allowed them to breathe freely underwater. Communication still relied on gestures. Unless they upgraded to mid-grade ones. Ku Yuan put away his boat. Qiu Tianhai pointed to a small patch of sand in front of them. Ku Yuan looked at him, confused. Qiu Tianhai nodded vigorously. Then he took out the iron rake and sand sieve and handed them over. The meaning was clear. There's cold iron sand here. He wanted Ku Yuan to dig. Ku Yuan couldn't quite believe it, but he took the tools anyway. He started digging into the sand. Before he could even get a few strokes in, he saw a light blue shimmer. Startled, Ku Yuan turned to look at Qiu Tianhai. He found the other man looking at him with a smug grin. Even without words, Ku Yuan knew exactly what he was thinking. He was mostly gloating about his own skill. And honestly, it was impressive. After Ku Yuan dug up about an ounce of iron sand there, Qiu Tianhai moved on. He started scanning the surroundings, acting like he was searching for more cold iron sand. After that last experience, Ku Yuan obediently followed behind him. He wanted to see exactly how he was finding it. But before they had gone far, Qiu Tianhai suddenly crouched down. He used a telekinesis spell to move a boulder. This time, he didn't even need to dig. As soon as the rock moved, Ku Yuan saw that light blue glow. Needless to say, he started digging. While Ku Yuan dug there, Qiu Tianhai went to find the next spot. By the time Ku Yuan finished and stood up, Qiu Tianhai had already started on his own. He was digging hard into a small sand dune. Ku Yuan rushed over to help. As it turned out, this spot had even more cold iron sand. Over 3 ounces. By the time they finished there, it had gotten very late. At the bottom of the lake, it was so dark you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. If the cold iron sand itself didn't give off that faint blue light, they wouldn't even be able to see what they were mining. The two of them were forced to steer their boats back to shore. Once they surfaced, Ku Yuan looked at the half-pound of cold iron sand in his storage bag, still in disbelief. How long had they been down there? The whole trip took less than an hour. Half a pound in half an hour, setting aside his own needs. If he sold this, now that the Water Dragon sect had raised prices, a pound of cold iron sand could sell for 20 spirit stones. That meant 10 spirit stones in half an hour. 20 in an hour. This wasn't mining. This was literally picking up money. Once they were inside, Ku Yuan carefully looked Qiu Tianhai over. Then he asked if he was using some kind of cheat. He almost asked if he was hacking too, but he decided to drop the two. Xiao Tianhai clearly didn't get the reference. So Ku Yuan explained that he wanted to know how he could find the exact locations so accurately. Ku Yuan had watched very closely. Xiao Tianhai hadn't missed a single time. If he said it was there, it was there. It was like he had X-ray vision. He could see right through the sand. This definitely had to do with Xiao Tianhai's secret. If the other man hadn't shown it, Ku Yuan wouldn't have asked. But since he'd already revealed it, he had to get the full story. Xiao Tianhai chuckled. First, he went to the door and looked left and right, making sure no one else was around before coming back. Ku Yuan was even more direct. He took a level 1 low-grade silence talisman and slapped it on the wall, so that no matter how loud they were, the sound wouldn't leak out. Seeing that, Xiao Tianhai felt safe. He leaned in close to Ku Yuan. He carefully pulled something from his chest. He held it in his fist, then opened it for him to see. Ku Yuan looked and saw that in Xiao Tianhai's palm lay a small human finger bone. It was polished white and shiny, like it had been handled for a very long time. He found it hard to believe. He didn't understand how a finger bone could help find cold iron sand. Xiao Tianhai nodded firmly. He told him to take out some cold iron sand, and he'd see. Ku Yuan took out a small bag of sand and spread it on the stone table. At that exact moment, the bone, which was originally white, immediately lit up with a sea blue glow. As Xiao Tianhai brought it closer to the sand, the light grew stronger, and when he moved it away, the light dimmed. Xiao Tianhai looked up at Ku Yuan with a grin. Seeing that he still looked skeptical, he tossed the bone over for him to try. Ku Yuan caught it. He tested it with the cold iron sand himself. It was exactly as he said. Now he had no choice but to believe it. He muttered that this bone was quite the treasure and handed it back. Xiao Tianhai took it casually. He tucked it back into his storage bag. Ku Yuan also put away his cold iron sand. Then Xiao Tianhai asked how much more sand he needed. Ku Yuan checked his storage bag. He estimated he had nearly 3.5 pounds. But to be safe, he said he was still about 2 pounds short. Hearing that, Xiao Tianhai was very confident. He didn't think it would be hard at all. He told him to get some rest tonight. Sleep well, because tomorrow his brother would take care of everything for him. With this big treasure in hand, finding cold iron sand was like finding a dead cave every single day. With that, Xiao Tianhai headed back. Ku Yuan also snapped out of his brief moment of joy and shock. He realized he wasn't the only one with good fortune, like Dong Xian, who had joined the water dragon sect, and now Xiao Tianhai. They all had their own destinies, and even in a tiny place like Yunwu Marsh, people with lucky breaks were as common as carp in a river, let alone the entire Sanli continent. He just didn't know where Xiao Tianhai got that finger bone. Did he only find one bone? Or did he find an entire skeleton? From what he just saw, this skeleton was likely the remains of some powerful master. If so, did Xiao Tianhai receive that master's inheritance? Or, to put it another way, if he'd had this bone for a long time, why didn't he bring it out before? Did he just find it? Or had he found it long ago and only discovered its use in the last 2 days? Ku Yuan had many questions. But since Xiao Tianhai didn't say, it wasn't his place to ask. The fact that the man shared the secret of the bone with him showed an incredible amount of trust. Regardless, good fortune was always a good thing. With Xiao Tianhai's finger bone, upgrading the fish pond was no longer a worry. Ku Yuan cultivated hard all night. The next day, the two of them headed out early. The cold iron sand near this island was almost gone, so they specifically moved to a further location. Just like yesterday, Xiao Tianhai searched while Ku Yuan dug. That was the only way to maximize efficiency. As it turned out, in a single day, never mind 2 pounds. When they got home and weighed it, they found they dug up a full 3 pounds. If they traded that for spirit stones, it would be 60. Ku Yuan said he only needed 2 pounds. So he gave a remaining pound back to Xiao Tianhai. Over the last few days, all the sand they dug went to Ku Yuan. Xiao Tianhai was basically working for free. He hadn't received a single bit of compensation, nor did he utter a single word of complaint. Xiao Tianhai asked one more time if it was really enough. He even told him that if it wasn't, just say the word. Ku Yuan confirmed it was plenty. Hearing that, Xiao Tianhai got even more excited. He said that from tomorrow on, whatever they dug up, they'd split 50-50 like before. Ku Yuan originally planned to leave once he had enough sand to upgrade the pond. But seeing the expectant look in Xiao Tianhai's eyes, he figured staying a few more days wouldn't hurt. That way, if the Qin family really did come back for blood, Qiu Tianhai would have someone to back him up. So he agreed. He just said as long as Qiu Tianhai didn't feel cheated. Kiskiviko yuan svoidit. He knew full well that by staying to mine, he was completely riding on Qiu Tianhai's good luck. But Qiu Tianhai seemed a bit annoyed by that. He said Ku Yuan had saved his life twice. And this time, he'd specifically come from the market district to rescue him. If not for Ku Yuan, the grass on his grave would be 3 feet high by now, let alone mining here. With that, he turned around and stomped off in a huff. Ku Yuan watched him go, but didn't follow. He just looked at the requirements met text next to the fish pond on his control panel and didn't hesitate. He immediately selected upgrade. The panel refreshed. The fish pond was now level 2. At the same time, the spiritual effects and upgrade requirements for level 3 appeared. Ku Yuan stared at the text on the panel, his eyes widening. He didn't expect 2 spiritual effects to appear. Well, it wasn't exactly 2 separate effects. After all, the first effect already had several sub-effects. But this was the first time the panel had listed a second spiritual effect separately. Currently, the level 3 structures he knew of were the chicken coop and the pigsty. But for either of those, the panel didn't list a second effect separately. So this fish pond was truly the first exception. When he saw the effect, carp transforming into a flood dragon, meaning carp-type spirit fish had a tiny chance to mutate into an ice flood dragon hatchling. Ku Yuan immediately caught the key point. Even if the chance was tiny, it was still a chance. Furthermore, this ice flood dragon was a rank 3 spirit beast. Rank 3 meant that once it matured, it would have at least golden core level strength. Besides, what caught his attention even more was that after the mutation, it would be a hatchling. From what Ku Yuan knew, if a cultivator wants to form a contract with a spirit beast, they can only do it while it's a hatchling, because at that stage, its soul is still weak. Once it matures, unless the cultivator's soul is several times stronger than the beast's, they can forget about ever forming a contract. But if your soul is already several times stronger, it means your strength far exceeds the beast's. At that point, a contract doesn't really mean much. Thinking about this, Ku Yuan couldn't help but feel that this fish pond was part of his path to becoming a beast tamer. I say part, because the level 3 chicken coop effect could already help him become one. And now there was this fish pond too. By then, he'd be a beast tamer on both land and water. Furthermore, a rank 3 ice flood dragon could definitely fly. So essentially, he'd be a beast tamer of the sea, land, and air. Ku Yuan indulged in his happy fantasy for a while before looking at the first spiritual effect. It produced 3 drops of Ice Soul River due every day. But Ku Yuan didn't know what that was. He just guessed it was another immortal resource only usable after Foundation establishment. Next was the increased chance for spirit fish to rank up. Finally, it wasn't just semi-spirit fish becoming spirit fish, but spirit fish ranking up among themselves. He doesn't know if a rank 1 spirit fish could become rank 2. The panel didn't specify, but he figured it was very likely. Aside from carp-type fish having a chance to become ice flood dragons, other types of spirit fish also had a chance to develop ice attribute mutations. Once they mutated, not only would their strength increase, but the value of their materials would likely skyrocket. In other words, they'd sell for a great price. Growth speed also increased by another 10%, bringing the total to 40%. Finally, the upgrade requirements. He still had to reach Foundation establishment, but the spirit stones needed were fewer than for the pigsty or chicken coop. It looked like once he successfully established his foundation, the first structure he'd take to level 3 would be this fish pond. Looking at it this way, Ku Yuan felt the panel seemed to favor the fish pond a bit, but no matter how hard he thought, he couldn't figure out why. Eventually, he just let it go. After all, it was a good thing for him. After checking the level 3 effects, he suddenly felt the level 2 fish pond was a bit mediocre. Still, mediocre or not, it was a level 2 structure. It could produce 1 drop of water flower dew every day. He certainly couldn't let that go to waste. Ku Yuan looked around, then dug a small hole behind the stone hut. He filled it with some water. Then he found a random, nameless fish by the shore and tossed it in. After a bit of work, the words fish pond appeared above the small hole. Level 2. Ku Yuan activated the structure's effect. Immediately, a tiny emerald green drop of water appeared over the hole. He quickly waved his hand and caught it in a prepared jade vial. Then he deactivated the effect. Once finished, he didn't take the fish out, because this tiny fish pond could be used every day. Thinking about this, another thought struck him. If he could get the water flower dew for free, what about the half-ounce of blood essence from the pigsty? Could he get that for free too? But how to get it for free was the problem. A fish pond was easy to make, but where was he going to find a pig for a pigsty? In desperation, Ku Yuan went back to his old trick. He took a brush and paper, wrote pigsty, and slapped the paper onto the wall of the stone hut he was living in. Maybe because the hut itself was as dilapidated as a pigsty. The moment he stuck the paper to the wall, a bead of blood essence appeared in the hut. At that moment, he could only sigh and wonder if he really was living in a pigsty. Ku Yuan flicked his wrist and collected the blood essence. Then he quickly tore the paper down. He could get the effects of both the fish pond and the pigsty for free here. That made him feel a bit more at ease. The night passed without incident. Early the next morning, while it was still dark, Xiao Tianhai came to call Ku Yuan to go underwater. Xiao Tianhai was eager and kept pushing. Ku Yuan grumbled that if he ended up with rheumatism when he was old, it would be the other man's fault. But in the end, they went down together. In reality, it was exactly as Xiao Tianhai said. It was literally like picking up money. They'd picked yesterday's spot almost clean. So today, they specifically moved to a different area. Plus, they headed out earlier. So after a full day, Ku Yuan weighed the cold iron sand in his hand. He estimated he had about 3.5 pounds. It really was no different from finding a dead cave. This was half a pound more than yesterday. Xiao Tianhai immediately wanted to go sell it. Ku Yuan thought about it. They'd been here for several days and hadn't sold anything yet. He figured going once or twice wouldn't be a problem. Besides, it would be safer if they went separately. But if we go too often, it'll definitely be a problem. After all, a person can only mine so much cold iron sand in a day. Even an experienced miner can only manage a few ounces at most. If we start selling several pounds every single day, even an idiot would know something's up. Xiao Tianhai understood that well enough. After that, the two of them left the house one after another. They headed for Qingba Island, the largest one in the area. The moment they stepped ashore, Ji Yuan felt several pairs of eyes lock on him. But as soon as he released a hint of his aura, those gazes quickly shifted away. He scanned his surroundings. The place consisted of a single, narrow stone path. On either side were stone houses or people setting up roadside stalls. But without exception, most of the cultivators here had fierce, menacing expressions. It made sense, though. If you weren't tough enough, you simply wouldn't survive in a place like this. Ji Yuan watched as Xiao Tianhai entered the water dragon sex shop. He chose to wait by a shop next door. Most of the stall keepers here were only at the 4th or 5th level of qi refining. The 6th level was a rare sight. As for the late stage of qi refining, Ji Yuan only sensed a single trace of such an aura coming from one of the stone houses. Because of that, with his level 6 qi refining cultivation, no matter how fierce the cultivators on the street looked, they all greeted him with polite smiles. He didn't have to wait long. Xiao Tianhai soon emerged. Two cultivators, one tall and one short, immediately followed him out of the shop. But Xiao Tianhai didn't seem to care at all. The moment he stepped out, he steered his boat and took off. Ji Yuan stayed behind for a while. In the end, those two cultivators never bothered to give chase. That actually made him feel a bit disappointed. Ever since he got that knucklebone, life for Ji Yuan and Xiao Tianhai had become much simpler. During the day, they went out to mine spirit stones. At night, they returned to use those stones for cultivation. Furthermore, Ji Yuan had opened a small passage between their two houses. He quietly shared the effects of his cave dwelling with Xiao Tianhai. He couldn't do that with anything else that risked exposing his secrets, of course. But this level 1 cave dwelling only increased the spiritual energy concentration by 20% at night. So Xiao Tianhai didn't even notice. He just thought that using spirit stones for cultivation was incredibly extravagant. His cultivation progress was significantly faster than before. That afternoon, after selling the cold iron sand and heading back, Ji Yuan steered his boat and waited for Xiao Tianhai halfway. Seeing him arrive, Ji Yuan shared his thoughts, suggesting they shouldn't sell at Qingba Island for the next few days. They had been selling there for several days straight. He was worried they had already caught someone's eye. He suggested they stockpile for a few days and then head to the Baibao Pavilion in the nearby Jingdo Ward to sell. Xiao Tianhai nodded in agreement. He took a piece of gummy candy from his storage bag and popped it into his mouth. Feeling the sweetness spread across his tongue, he slowly remarked that the spot they found recently was quite good. It yielded about 4 pounds a day. They could mine for 4 more days and then head to Jingdo Ward to sell. Ji Yuan did some mental math. He felt that after 4 days, it would be time for him to head back. Once he returned this time, he planned to go into seclusion. The kind of seclusion where he wouldn't come out until he reached the late stage of qi refining. So he agreed. Xiao Tianhai reminded him that they should push themselves a bit harder tomorrow. They needed to search thoroughly, because he always felt like there was a hidden cave nearby. By the evening of the following day, on Qingba Island, inside a boat with a tattered canvas roof by the shore, 2 middle-aged men, one tall and one short, were sitting. Both of them hailed from Huayin Ward. They were extremely close. One was named Sun Daji. The other was named Deng Lang. Back in the day, when they were still in Huayin Ward, the two of them frequently engaged in robbery. Then they accidentally bit off more than they could chew and were chased all the way to Heishui Ward. Later, when the price of cold iron sand went up, they ran to Qingba Lake to make their fortune. Sun Daji frowned. He wondered why those two hadn't shown up today. Maybe they didn't have much luck and couldn't mine enough. Deng Lang just gave a cold smirk. He thought Sun Daji was being too naive. He knew exactly how cunning those two were. On their first day here, they had split up. If he hadn't accidentally spotted them on the same island that day, he never would have realized they were together. According to Deng Lang's guess, those two were probably worried that coming too often would attract people like them, so they likely planned to wait a few days before returning. Or, being even more cautious, they might have gone directly to another market to sell their cold iron sand. Hearing this, Sun Daji could only throw up his hands and ask what they should do now. Between the two of them, even though Deng Lang was only at the 5th level of qi refining, he was always the one with the ideas. Sun Daji, despite being at the 6th level, lacked that kind of sharp mind. Deng Lang laughed heartily. He said it all depended on whether Sun Daji wanted to go through with it. Sun Daji obviously did, because if they found a ridge or cave and dug up several pounds of cold iron sand a day, bringing in 60 or 70 spirit stones, who wouldn't be envious? He was just a bit hesitant. He felt that with their current strength, this might be a bit difficult, especially that level 6 guy who looked very steady. One look, and you could tell he wasn't someone to mess with. Deng Lang didn't think it would be that hard. They just needed to find 2 more people. When Sun Daji asked who they should get, he replied that if they wanted to be sure of taking down that level 6 guy, the Qingba twin heroes were the most reliable choice. Those two lived as bandit cultivators. They would definitely be interested in something like this. Sun Daji wasn't happy about that, because those two were both at level 6 qi refining. They were much stronger than them. If they brought them in, there wouldn't be much profit left to split. Deng Lang saw his point. He suggested they watch for 2 more days. In the meantime, they could look for someone more suitable. Or, if those two ever went out alone, that would be even better. Once they finished talking, Deng Lang made an excuse to leave. He steered his boat alone across the waters of Qingba Pond. He was secretly calculating, with how cautious those two were. If they waited 2 more days, they'd probably be gone from Qingba Pond already. They couldn't wait. If they waited, the meat right at their lips would vanish. He felt that Sun Daji's name sounded nice. Great wisdom. But in reality, the man had no great ambition. He didn't have enough strength, yet he wasn't willing to share the loot. You couldn't go far following someone like that. Deng Lang had seen through him long ago. So he decided to ditch Sun Daji. He'd go find the Qingba twin heroes himself. Speaking of the Qingba twin heroes, they were quite famous. No one knew which war they came from. They only knew they were 2 brothers named Lu De and Lu Er. From very early on, even before the price of cold iron sand went up, they had already claimed Qingba Pond as their cultivation ground. Furthermore, the 2 brothers were very skilled in a combined attack technique. Their peak achievement was teaming up to kill a late-stage qi refining cultivator. Because of that, in this territory of Qingba Pond, even normal late-stage qi refining cultivators gave them face. They didn't live on Qingba Island, but on a slightly further island called Hanji Island. When Deng Lang arrived, he happened to catch them returning from outside on their spirit boat. From a distance, he called out with a smile, signaling that he meant no harm. The Liu brothers, who looked very similar, slowed their boat. They asked what he wanted with them. Deng Lang said he was naturally there to help the two brothers make a fortune, and a massive one at that. Liu Da and Liu Er immediately understood that someone like Deng Lang wouldn't be coming to them about mining. It could only be about a dead man's treasure. Deng Lang acted wary. He said they should talk on the island. He was afraid of being seen out here. The two brothers looked at each other and agreed. Half a day later, after hearing Deng Lang's description, the Liu brothers looked at each other. They asked again if he was sure those two could dig up 3 or 4 pounds of sand a day. Deng Lang swore it was true. He said he and Sun Daji. He almost let the name slip. Have been watching them for days. There was absolutely no mistake. Moreover, it was very likely they had found a dead cave. Luda thought that wasn't impossible, but after tapping his finger on his knee, he said he and his brother hadn't been bandits for years, so he wanted a day to think about it. He told Deng Lang to come back at this time tomorrow for an answer. Deng Lang was frustrated, but didn't have the guts to argue. He could only stand up and take his leave. As for what Luda said, he wouldn't believe it if his life depended on it. Haven't been bandits for years. In his eyes, it was probably more like haven't been bandits for days. He guessed they probably had something else to do and couldn't leave yet. Otherwise, with their personalities, they would have agreed long ago. But just as he left Hanji Island, a flash of insight hit Deng Lang. A sudden thought occurred to him. He suspected those two might want to ditch him and do the job themselves. Thinking of that, Deng Lang whipped his head around. He looked back at the island that loomed like a giant monster. He was furious. He cursed himself for being stupid enough to give away the location of those two. But Luda had pressed him so hard, and he didn't dare refuse. After Deng Lang left, Liu Er immediately told Luda that this was definitely a dead cave. Because without one, there was no way they'd have such a high yield. Several pounds of cold iron sand a day. This dead cave probably wasn't small. Luda nodded like a seasoned pro. Then he told his brother to pack up so they could go find those two newcomers directly. Liu Er wasn't surprised by this decision at all, because if they just did what Deng Lang said, how much could they really make from one robbery? But if they found those two newcomers and forced them to reveal the location of the dead cave, that would be the real profit. Besides, now that they knew the target's identities from Deng Lang, why would they bother sharing the loot with him? If he complained, they'd just kill him too. At the same time, somewhere in the dark depths of Qingba Pond, two dark figures were huddled together. One of them started mumbling sound from his throat. Qiu Tianhai was certain there was a dead cave here. He'd found the spot 2 days ago, because he noticed the surrounding waters had significantly more cold iron sand than other places. In a situation like this, any miner with a bit of experience could guess there was a cave nearby, and a dead one at that. The reason he knew it was a dead cave was because if it were active, you'd feel the freezing chill from a mile away. And to find a dead cave, the prerequisite was finding a place where the sand was richer than elsewhere. If it were a normal miner, they'd probably have to be a master to notice such a slight anomaly. But Qiu Tianhai had that mysterious fingerbone. None of this was a problem for him. For the past few days, he'd been bragging to Ku Yuan that finding a dead cave was child's play for him. Now, he had actually found a lead. Normally, in other places, they could only dig up 3.5 pounds at most. But here, they could easily get 4. Therefore, Qiu Tianhai was positive there was an undiscovered dead cave nearby. Since it was undiscovered, both the top and bottom must have collapsed and been sealed off. The surface would be covered in a thick layer of mud and sand. Ku Yuan and he had been circling this area for 2 days. After ruling out several spots, only one last place remained. They used spells to clear away a 3-meter deep layer of silt. Sure enough, they saw a slope made of jumbled, pitch-black rocks. Qiu Tianhai found a depression. As soon as he took out the fingerbone, it lit up with an eerie blue light. The closer he got to the slope, the brighter the light became. At this point, it was basically confirmed that the dead cave was right here, facing the massive boulders from the collapse. Qiu Tianhai first tried to move them with telekinesis, but they didn't budge an inch. Ku Yuan stood guard nearby. It was already dark, and underwater it was even gloomier. Yunwu Marsh was much more dangerous at night than during the day. Many fierce spirit fish and monsters only came out to play at night, and cultivators couldn't see clearly underwater. It added several layers of danger. Ku Yuan had already solved this problem. He prepared plenty of night vision talismans. They were just basic level 1 low-grade ones. Easy to make. Ku Yuan waited for a bit. Xiao Tianhai had already tried many spells, like Water Arrow and his specialty, Water Blade. But none could break through these collapsed rocks to open an entrance. It made sense. The boulders were massive to begin with, and being near a cold iron sand mine, even these outer rocks were harder than normal stone. Seeing Xiao Tianhai staring blankly at the cave, Ku Yuan thought for a moment, then stepped up and tapped his shoulder. He made a few hand signs, meaning he wanted Xiao Tianhai to stand guard while he gave a try. Ku Yuan stepped forward. Looking at these massive mountain rocks, he knew moving them was out of the question. They could only look for weak spots to open a small hole to crawl through. And Xiao Tianhai had already found that spot. It was the gap between several large boulders. It was already covered in blade marks from his spirit weapon. Ku Yuan's first thought was to summon the white water flying sword. When the sword entered the water and grew to its normal size, he slashed forward. This strike wasn't as smooth as cutting through tofu, but it sank 2 inches deep into the rock. There was definitely hope. The white water flying sword was a mid-grade spirit weapon, after all. Cutting through boulders was well within its capability. Xiao Tianhai's eyes lit up when he saw that. But Ku Yuan still felt it was too slow. It was already dark. If they didn't hurry, who knows how long it would take to open a door. Just as he was thinking, a flash of inspiration hit him. He suddenly remembered something. He flicked his wrist. The heart-protecting mirror he got from Xiong Yofu appeared in his hand. This spirit weapon was only a low-grade one. But as long as you poured spiritual energy into it, it could emit a powerful beam of light. Xiao Tianhai was instantly thrilled when he saw it. He kept mumbling that this would work. Ku Yuan immediately understood. He floated up slightly. Then he aimed the mirror at the gap underwater. He began frantically pouring spiritual energy into it. Even for a level 6 Qi refining cultivator of the water element, known for their deep reserves, it took a full third of his energy to charge this mirror. Then, with a single thought, he released it. In an instant, a thick beam of white light blasted out from the mirror. It shot straight into the gap. Accompanied by a loud explosion was a massive surge of water. Even though Ku Yuan had put up several layers of water shields, he was still pushed back several meters before he could stabilize himself. He immediately scanned the surrounding waters. Fortunately, water resistance is high. The shockwave didn't seem to travel very far before dissipating. Seeing that, Xiao Tianhai took the lead. He rushed toward the cave. Ku Yuan followed close behind to check. Sure enough, a pitch-black entrance had appeared on the lake bed. Xiao Tianhai instinctively wanted to jump in, but Ku Yuan quickly grabbed him and slowly shook his head. Xiao Tianhai understood. He summoned a white bone tortoise shell to shield himself. Then he pulled out his crescent moon scimitar. Ku Yuan slapped another night vision talisman on him. Only then did he jump inside and vanished into the cave. Exploring a cave usually meant one person goes down while the other stays on guard, especially since this was an underwater cave. If no one was out here watching, and a monster showed up, or other miners were attracted, they'd be ambushed and killed. Ku Yuan summoned the black wind boat. He sat cross-legged on it, waiting silently. If anything really happened, he could immediately take Xiao Tianhai and flee. 1 stick of incense as time passed. Ku Yuan was a bit happy. He figured there must be a lot of cold iron sand inside. 2 sticks of incense passed. He was even happier. The amount inside had to be massive. But once 3 sticks of incense had passed, Ku Yuan started to get worried. Something felt off. If everything was fine, why was it taking so long? Just as he was thinking about going down to check, he suddenly felt a surge of spiritual energy from inside the cave. There seemed to be some unusual noises too. Ku Yuan immediately stood up, just as his white water flying sword came out. Xiao Tianhai's figure came blasting out of the cave. Not only that, something massive seemed to be chasing him. Ku Yuan didn't say a word. The white water flying sword swept forward with a powerful strike. Executing a strike underwater naturally had a much greater effect. So the moment that thing emerged, its speed dropped. Ku Yuan finally got a clear look at it. It was a giant crab, as big as a millstone. Its entire body was grayish-black. Its claws and shell were covered in a thick layer of stone armor. Its 2 eyes were blood-red. It looked like it wanted to eat them alive. Ku Yuan immediately realized that even if this thing wasn't a late-stage monster, it was close. He pointed his finger and fired nearly 10 water droplet fingers. The crab swung its claws, blocking most of them, but 2 still hit its weak spots. In pain, The stone armor crab immediately retreated. Ku Yuan seized the chance. He grabbed Qiu Tianhai by the collar, tossed him onto the black wind boat, and bolted. Under the night sky, the quiet surface of Qingba Pond was broken by a splash. Immediately after, a dark shadow shot out. The black wind boat landed on the water and carried the two of them far away in an instant. Qiu Tianhai couldn't stop babbling. He looked incredibly excited. He just felt it was so intense and so damn good. Ku Yuan didn't say a word. He took him nearly 2 miles away. They found another deserted island nearby. Then, the two of them landed behind a large protruding rock. Qiu Tianhai let out a long sigh of relief. Even though it was night, Ji Yuan could see his eyes shining brightly. The two of them asked each other almost at the same time. One asked how the situation in the cave was. The other asked how many spirit stones a pound of cold iron sand was worth now. Ji Yuan knew Qiu Tianhai was dying to share his joy, so he played along. He said the price was still 20 spirit stones a pound and asked how much he had dug up. Qiu Tianhai felt that words couldn't express his excitement. So he just pulled out a large cloth bag that was nearly overflowing. Although Ji Yuan had prepared himself, he still couldn't help but widen his eyes at the sight. He took it with one hand. He waited for a moment. It felt like there were at least 10 pounds. Then, Qiu Tianhai slowly recounted that the rich cave was filled with cold, iron sand everywhere. There was no need to even dig. You just had to stuff it into your bag. When he first entered, he didn't even bother looking around. He just started grabbing it. After going in a bit, about 10 feet in, he felt something was off, because the deeper he went, the more cold iron sand there was. So, he thought he might as well go a bit deeper. That way, he could collect even more. But to his surprise, after another 20 or 30 feet, he suddenly found a large rock blocking the path. He didn't think much of it and was about to step over it when the rock suddenly moved. It scared him so much he ran for his life. Luckily, the beast seemed to have just woken up. It was dazed for a moment. Otherwise, he probably would have died there today. After the initial joy, recalling the experience, Qiu Tianhai couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. Ji Yuan handed back the bag of cold iron sand, but Qiu Tianhai split it in two. He handed half back to Ji Yuan. Ji Yuan said he had seen it clearly earlier. It was a first-grade, mid-stage stone armor crab. It had probably eaten so much cold iron sand that it was on the verge of breaking through to the late stage. So, Qiu Tianhai was truly lucky to have made it back alive. Qiu Tianhai gave a short laugh, but then he sighed. He felt that with that thing guarding the place, unless one was at the late stage of qi condensation, entering would most likely mean death. It was such a waste of that rich cave, since there was so much cold iron sand inside. Ji Yuan suggested that since they had dug up so much in one trip, they should be satisfied. After thinking for a moment, he said that after selling the sand at Jingda Market tomorrow, he planned to return to the main market. Hearing this, Qiu Tianhai couldn't smile anymore. Ji Yuan continued to advise him that with these spirit stones, it would be enough for Qiu Tianhai to reach the 6th level of qi condensation. He shouldn't be greedy. He should wait until he broke through to the 6th level before coming back here to hustle. If he waited until he reached the late stage of qi condensation, then he wouldn't have to worry so much about the Qin family anymore. Qiu Tianhai just nodded at that. Ji Yuan continued, making arrangements. He suggested that after returning to Blackwater Market, Qiu Tianhai shouldn't come back for a while, because the Qin family would surely have people stationed there. It would be best to just find any market or a small deserted island to break through first. Qiu Tianhai happily followed Ji Yuan's plan. Ji Yuan stood up as well. He prepared to head back. Over the past few days, he had accumulated nearly 6 pounds of cold iron sand himself, plus the 5 pounds from today's rich cave. He had a total of 11 pounds. If exchanged for spirit stones, it would be over 200, enough to trade for 2 mid-grade spirit stones. With these, breaking through to the late stage of qi condensation shouldn't be a problem. A good harvest always brings joy. The two of them steered the boat. They got their bearings and headed toward the small island where they lived. An hour later, Ji Yuan finally saw the small house where he stayed. It was probably around midnight. He planned to sleep for a bit before leaving. But suddenly, he noticed someone coming out of Qiu Tianhai's stone house next door. He instinctively stopped the black wind boat. Qiu Tianhai beside him also realized something was wrong and stopped his boat as well. Right then, the water behind them suddenly erupted with a splash. Another spirit boat surged forward. One in front and one behind, they surrounded the two of them. Ji Yuan narrowed his eyes at the person on the shore. Then he turned to look at the person behind them. He saw that the two of them looked very similar. They were likely brothers. Moreover, their cultivation levels were the same as his. Both were at the 6th level of qi condensation. It immediately made him think of a name, the Qingba twin heroes. Qiu Tianhai, however, was grinning from ear to ear. He introduced himself as Lu Quan from Time Market, and introduced Ji Yuan as his cousin, Lu Changshen. Hearing Qiu Tianhai say that, Ji Yuan understood that the other party didn't intend to attack, or rather, they didn't dare to. Two cultivators at the 6th level of qi condensation, especially ones who had killed late-stage cultivators before, was enough to make them wary. That was only natural. Ji Yuan immediately cupped his hands and smiled. Accepting the identity of Lu Changshen, Luda and Lu Er looked at each other. They were silent for a moment. Finally, Luda spoke up, but this time, there was a hint of a smile in his voice. He said that since they were family, it would be much easier to talk. He invited the two of them onto the island to discuss things. A while later, the four of them were sitting in Qiu Tianhai's house. Ji Yuan and Qiu Tianhai sat opposite each other. Luda and Lu Er also sat opposite each other. The two sides sat in a tense formation, and Luda's position was closest to the door. Neither Ji Yuan nor Qiu Tianhai spoke. They just quietly waited for the Lu brothers to speak. Finally, Luda stated his intention. He said they came today because they wanted to get rich together. Ji Yuan smiled in response, implying that since they were newcomers, how could they possibly get rich? If anything, they should be the ones following the two big brothers' lead. Lu Er didn't beat around the bush anymore. He said bluntly that someone told them they had found a rich cave. The smile on Ji Yuan's face instantly froze. He instinctively glanced at Qiu Tianhai. They both understood the look in each other's eyes, because the rich cave had only been found a few hours ago, yet someone already knew. This was way too fast. They immediately thought of the possibility that selling too much cold iron sand lately had drawn unwanted attention. But that reaction, in the eyes of Luda and Lu Er, was proof that they were right. So, the smiles on the Lu brothers' faces grew even wider. Qiu Tianhai asked who had told them this news. Luda acted as if it wasn't convenient to reveal. He even said they were men of their word. But before he could finish, Ji Yuan cut in. He said that if they just told them who it was, they would share the rich cave with them. Luda immediately blurted out the name Deng Lang without hesitation, because for them, their integrity had long been traded for spirit stones. Ji Yuan didn't know this person, but after Qiu Tianhai reminded him that it was one of the two brothers who had followed him from the Water Dragon sex shop the first time he sold the sand, he remembered immediately. Luda looked at the two of them, waiting for them to state their position. His eyes kept darting between Ji Yuan and Qiu Tianhai, clearly implying that if things didn't go his way, he'd turn on them instantly. The smile on Ji Yuan's face, however, became even more sincere. He said he could take the two big brothers to the rich cave, but he made it clear that they had to get a share of the cold iron sand collected inside. Luda agreed immediately. He said that since they found the cave, it was only natural they get a share. Ji Yuan added that if he wanted to kill Deng Lang later, the two big brothers shouldn't stop him. To make the act more convincing, he even intentionally clenched his fists. Luda immediately acted very reasonable, assuring him that they would definitely side with family on that matter. But Ji Yuan didn't stop there. Seeing Luda getting a bit impatient, he still smiled and said that meeting was fate. And since they were bringing such a huge benefit to the two big brothers, why not, after they succeeded, all four of them be known as the Qingba Four Heroes? Luda and Lu Er looked at each other. Finally, they slowly nodded in agreement. Seeing this, Qiu Tianhai immediately stood up, suggesting they should set off quickly, under the cover of night, for spirit boats cut through the silence of Qingba Pool. Coincidentally, Luda and Lu Er were escorting Ji Yuan and Qiu Tianhai right in the middle. They hadn't been out for even half an hour, when Lu Er couldn't help but impatiently ask how much further it was. He was clearly worried that Ji Yuan and Qiu Tianhai were up to something. Qiu Tianhai replied that they were almost there. They just had to pass the rocky island ahead. Luda and Lu Er looked at each other. They both nodded. They had lived at Qingba Pool for decades. They were naturally very familiar with this area, where there used to be rich caves, and where there might still be some. They knew it all like the back of their hands. Rich caves rarely appeared in this nearby area, so finding one now was perfectly plausible. Ji Yuan rounded the island, confirming the rich cave was right nearby. He steered the boat downward. He slapped a water-repelling talisman on himself and dove back into the water. As soon as he entered the water, he immediately looked toward the bottom. Although most of the silt had settled, the water still looked a bit murky. He quietly slapped a vision talisman on himself and looked toward the cave entrance. Thanks to that, his vision instantly became clear. The rich cave was just as it was, but the stone-armored crab was nowhere to be seen. It had probably retreated back into the cave. Qiu Tianhai, beside him, also breathed a silent sigh of relief. Although the two of them hadn't discussed it, their thoughts were perfectly aligned. Didn't the Liu brothers want to find a rich cave? Then they would just give this death cave to them. As for the stone-armored crab inside, they would naturally act as if they knew nothing about it. Luda casually pushed out a jade pearl. He poured spiritual energy into it. The surroundings instantly lit up. Even the cave entrance was revealed before them. He scolded the two of them for not even knowing how to hide such a rich cave. It was as if they were afraid others wouldn't see it. Lu Da's voice echoed underwater. Ji Yuan and Qiu Tianhai exchanged a few glances. The two of them stammered for a while, unable to say anything coherent. Luda lost his patience. He impatiently tossed the talisman to Ji Yuan, telling him not to use that trashy water-repelling talisman next time. Since he was already at the 6th level of chi condensation, he should at least use a mid-grade one. Ji Yuan took it and slapped it on himself. The water around him clearly loosened up. He could also speak now. He complained that he was poor. He really couldn't afford mid-grade water-repelling talismans. He even casually asked for a few more. Both mid-grade and low-grade water-repelling talismans repelled water. The only difference was that the mid-grade one allowed for free speech underwater, but the price was nearly double. Ji Yuan was naturally frugal, so he naturally chose the low-grade ones. Luda indifferently said he'd give him a few after they finished digging out this cave. With the rich cave right in front of him, Luda's voice and attitude had both changed slightly. Ji Yuan didn't care. He just explained that for the past few days, they had filled the cave back in after digging. But then they noticed no one was around. Plus, they were leaving early and returning late, so they got lazy and stopped filling it. Hearing this, Lu Er also spoke up. He said that not being discovered despite that meant they had incredible luck. No wonder they found this rich cave. Immediately after, the four of them landed around the cave entrance. At such a close distance, Ji Yuan was actually a bit worried the stone-armored crab would suddenly charge out. So, his hands hidden in his sleeves were tightly gripping two golden armor talismans. Luda used a telekinetic technique to call the jade pearl over and tossed it into the cave. The faint glow of cold iron sand reflected from inside. His breathing instantly quickened. Then he turned around and demanded that one of them enter the cave with them. Qiu Tianhai muttered his agreement and immediately took a step forward. In his view, although Ji Yuan's cultivation was higher than his, and his strength was greater, today's mess was his fault. Additionally, there was a powerful stone-armored crab inside this cave. It was extremely dangerous. So, he felt he should be the one to go in. Luda glanced at him, but in the end, he still looked toward Ji Yuan. He said he'd have to trouble Brother Changsheng to come with them. Between the two of them, one was at the 5th level of chi condensation, and the other was at the 6th. Naturally, he wanted the 6th level one by his side. Luda wouldn't feel safe leaving a 6th level cultivator guarding the entrance. Ji Yuan agreed without hesitation. If one of them had to go down, it was indeed more appropriate for him to go, because he had his arrays ready. When the time came, whether to fight or flee would be up to him. After speaking, Luda jumped into the cave first. Ji Yuan followed closely behind. Lu Er was the last to jump down. Once inside the cave, Ji Yuan became even more alert. His hands gripped the two golden armor talismans tightly. At the same time, he mentally linked with the dragon scale shield in his storage bag. He warily peered deep into the cave. Under the light of the pearl Luda held, Ji Yuan could clearly see the surroundings. The cave was narrow and cramped. The walls were made of fragmented black rocks, Some rocks had pale blue fragments on them. Probably in a few hundred or a few thousand years, they would also turn into cold iron sand. For now, there was no sign of the stone-armored crab. As they walked, Luda kept examining the ground. He occasionally muttered that the place they had dug was cleaner than if a dog had licked it. Right then, Lu'er from behind suddenly spoke up to warn them. Look ahead. Ji Yuan instinctively thought he had spotted the stone-armored crab. He almost planted his flag to attack. But when he looked up, he saw a layer of blue silt flowing on the ground ahead. Qiu Tianhai had said earlier that he only dug 10 feet deep. So, it was normal to see piles of cold iron sand not far into the cave. Luda looked at the layer of cold iron sand and gasped in shock. Then, without a word, he hurried forward. Even Lu Er behind Ji Yuan did the same. The two brothers approached and squatted down. First, they scooped up a handful and praised it. They felt the yield of this rich cave wouldn't be low. If they dug it all out, there would probably be dozens of pounds. This was clearly a huge windfall. Luda was obviously much calmer. He immediately told his brother to stop talking nonsense and start digging. But even as they started mining, Luda and Lu Er still summoned their defensive Dharma treasures to orbit them. Yiyuin Kerst invariably. He felt they truly lived up to their reputation as survivors of Qingba Pool. They were incredibly cautious. He also followed them forward. But before he could even squat down, Luda and Lu Er both turned to look at him warily, asking him what he thought he was doing. Ji Yuan replied, as if it were obvious that he also wanted to mine, since they were the ones who found the cave in the first place. Luda just gave a cold snort, telling him to wait there. He said they would share it with him after they finished digging. At the same time, he told him to stand back. Ji Yuan acted as if he were turning red with anger. But as the Lu brothers slowly stood up, he still reluctantly took a few steps back. He looked deep into the cave again. Still no movement. So he just waited. By the time Luda and Lu Er had dug forward more than 20 feet, they were almost blinded by the cold iron sand. He loudly complained that they were being unfair. That wasn't what they had agreed on outside. Luda turned back and barked at him to shut up. Was he not afraid of being heard? Ji Yuan was about to speak again, but he faintly heard the sound of rocks clashing, so he immediately shut his mouth. Luda turned back to continue mining. Ji Yuan's gaze now fell on that jade pearl. He quietly flicked his finger. A thread-thin spiritual light shot out, causing the brightly lit cave to instantly plunge into darkness. Ji Yuan summoned the Yin Ghost flag and slammed it into the ground. Black mist billowed out, instantly engulfing the Qingba twin heroes, and also the stone armor crab that had just charged out. Lu Er cried out in terror, but before he could understand what was happening, a massive force slammed into him, sending him flying. Luda summoned a shield with one hand to cover himself. Under the guidance of a water blue spell, he barely managed to block the stone-armored crab's impact. He also saw the situation clearly now. He roared in anger, demanding to know why this thing was here. His shield didn't budge, but his body was pushed straight back. After being pushed back for a while without seeing his brother, Luda began to panic and called out for Lu Er. From the darkness, Lu Er replied, but he couldn't be seen. Luda summoned a water-splitting spike to hover around him. At the same time, he slapped a vision talisman on himself. But everything before him was still pitch black. He couldn't see a thing. He immediately realized something was wrong and started shouting Lu Changxing's name, roaring curses because he couldn't find him. Ji Yuan didn't say a word. He just silently manipulated the Yin Ghost array to make the stone-armored crab and Lu Er collide, followed by a muffled groan. Lu Er also used a shield to block the crab's claw. But against this beast on the verge of reaching the late stage, he was clearly struggling to hold on. With a thought from Ji Yuan, he released 2 5th-level Yin Ghosts from the flag. The 2 ghost heads in the black mist were like fish in water. As soon as they appeared, they lunged straight at Lu Er. But their target wasn't Lu Er himself, but the Dharma shield in his hand, just as they had once gnawed on Ji Yuan's white water-flying sword. Now, as the 2 ghosts lunged, combined with the stone-armored crab's assault, they snatched the mid-grade Dharma treasure from Lu Er's hand almost effortlessly. Panic instantly gripped Lu Er's heart. But he was a ruthless man forged in life-and-death battles. He stomped his foot. His hands formed a seal. The lake water in front of him instantly churned into a vortex, directly pulling the stone-armored crab's body in. But just as he thought he was about to escape, he backed up and slammed into the cave wall. The recoil from a large rock made him groan. Immediately after, he felt a sweet taste in his throat. He felt something was wrong, because he had clearly seen the exit behind him just a moment ago. While he was confused, he suddenly realized that lake water was starting to flood into his nose. He frantically searched for his water-repelling talisman and pulled one out from his storage bag. But before he could slap it on, he saw a streak of red light like a shimmering phantom in the deep darkness. He pulled out another high-grade defensive talisman, but before he could use it, that red streak shot straight between his eyebrows. At the same time, a large amount of lake water flooded into his lungs. As he was dying, he seemed to finally understand something. He tried to shout Lu Changxing's name, but as soon as he opened his mouth, the lake water rushed in. He only let out a groan before falling silent. Immediately after, the stone-armored crab lunged in front of him. Its massive stone claw reached out. With a sickening crack, it snapped him in half at the waist. All of this happened incredibly fast. From Lu Er's clash with the crab to Ji Yuan's successful sneak attack, it all took place in a single breath. Meanwhile, Luda was still running aimlessly through the tunnel. He had no idea he was in an array until he heard Lu Er's dying groan, and then he finally realized something. He summoned his shield again. Standing still, he realized with shock that it was his brother, but there was no response, so he also fell silent. At this point, he knew someone was playing tricks behind his back. Otherwise, he would have lived his life in vain. He just couldn't understand how Lu Changsheng, who was also only at the 6th level, could maneuver between the crab and the two of them without being detected. Lu Changsheng didn't answer him. His only response was the stone-armored crab approaching, carrying the upper half of Lu Er's body. As soon as he saw his brother's corpse, the normally calm Luda instantly lost all reason. He reached into his storage bag, pulled out a high-grade offensive talisman, and crushed it. In an instant, a lightning dharma greatsword condensed from purple lightning appeared before him and lunged forward. It tore through the water and also ripped through Ji Yuan's ink ghost array. Lightning dharma was naturally full of yang energy. While a single high-grade talisman couldn't destroy the ink ghost array, it could still tear a hole in it. Unfortunately, it was already pitch black in this cave. Even if the array was slightly damaged, Luda had no way of knowing. The purple lightning greatsword surged out. The stone-armored crab also sensed the danger. It raised its 2 claws along with Lu Er's corpse. The greatsword pierced through Lu Er's chest and also sliced off one of the crab's claws. When it reached the crab, it flipped over to let its hard back shell block the strike. But even so, its back shell was still cracked by the lightning greatsword. The stone-armored crab roared in pain. It actually opened its mouth and let out a roar. Its body also lunged forward. They were already very close. Plus, Luda was blinded by rage. He couldn't dodge in time. He could only use his defensive shield to withstand the crab's biting and tearing, along with that massive claw. Taking advantage of a brief opening, he actually opened his mouth and spat out a spell, striking the stone-armored crab's relatively weak underbelly. The crab roared in pain once more. Just as Luda thought he'd have an opening to temporarily escape, he didn't expect that strike to only further trigger the crab's ferocity. It raised its claw and slammed it down violently. With just this one blow, Luda was pinned against the rock and coughed up a mouthful of blood. In his dazed state, Luda only felt a soft voice near his ear. He was about to open his mouth when he realized lake water was also flooding into his nose, along with a streak of red light and a streak of white light, making him realize they were Dharma treasures. Luda only had time to scream Lu Changxing's name before it was all over. Watching the stone-armored crab begin to tear into Lu Da's corpse, Ji Yuan, hiding in the darkness, also breathed a sigh of relief. The thought crossed his mind that the ink ghost array's erosion of the talismans was quite slow, but it eroded Lu Er's water-repelling talisman a bit faster. While Lu Da's was very slow, he must have switched to a different water-repelling talisman when he came down to this cave. What a sly fox. Ji Yuan looked at the heavily injured stone-armored crab and knew it was time to act. He summoned the white water flying sword again. He pointed his finger forward. As the sword lunged, it instantly entered through the wound on the crab's back. The crab, which had been happily eating the corpse, didn't expect someone to be behind it. Its body was racked with intense pain. It instinctively arched its body, its stone shell shaking violently, causing the entire mine to tremble. Ji Yuan timed it perfectly. He threw out the life-taking needle again. The red light pierced through the water, entering directly through the gap in the crab's belly. Under the dual assault, this stone-armored crab actually didn't die immediately. Instead, it went berserk, madly slamming its body against the cave walls. It seemed to want to shake off the two Dharma treasures. But the more it did that, the more force Ji Yuan applied. He understood that if he didn't kill this thing now, he wouldn't get another chance. The two sides struggled like this for over a dozen breaths. Only then did the crab gradually grow quiet, until there was no more movement. Seeing this, Ji Yuan also breathed a sigh of relief. But he still wasn't at ease. Not until he used his flying sword to sever the remaining claw and the crab's 8 legs. Only then did he step forward to collect the entire corpse. The corpse of a beast on the verge of reaching the late stage was valuable. It could be sold for quite a few spirit stones. It was just that this corpse was truly a bit large. Ji Yuan had to pull out the Ghost Island Lord's storage bag from before. He had to split it between 2 bags to finish collecting it. Immediately after, he also collected Luda and Lu Air's storage bags, just as he was retracting the array, and about to call Chiu Tianhai in to continue mining. The ground suddenly shook. The entire cave began to shake violently. Ji Yuan immediately realized the Earth Dragon was turning over, an earthquake. His eyes flared with urgency. Using almost all his strength, he lunged desperately toward the exit. In just a split second, he was no longer in the cave. He had made it out. Chiu Tianhai stood on his spirit boat, looking inside with a worried expression. Seeing Ji Yuan emerge, he had been waiting. He grabbed Ji Yuan's arm with one hand and hauled him onto the boat. Immediately after, the spirit boat shot out like an arrow, lunging straight toward the surface. But even so, they still weren't as fast as the earthquake. Before the two of them could break the surface, the spirit boat was capsized by a massive wave. Fortunately, they weren't far from the surface by then. Ji Yuan slapped 3 water-repelling talismans on himself in quick succession. He hurriedly summoned the Black Wind boat. As he stabilized himself, Chiu Tianhai also managed to steady his body. By now, after withstanding the first wave, the two of them finally burst out of the water. As soon as they emerged, Ji Yuan hurriedly looked around. He saw that Qingba Pool now looked like a half-full water jar being shaken by a giant. Massive waves reached for the sky. Some small rocky islands were also shaking. Rocks were tumbling down frantically. Chiu Tianhai shouted through the wind and waves that they had to get to Qingba Island, because every time the Earth Dragon turned over, Qingba Island remained as steady as an anchor. Ji Yuan immediately changed course, pushing the Black Wind boat to its limit, constantly cutting through the massive waves. He couldn't help but curse inwardly, thinking that he had never gone surfing in his past life. Yet here he was in this life, surfing during an earthquake, no less. He was truly gambling with his life. Fortunately, Ji Yuan's boat handling skills weren't bad. Plus, the quality of the Black Wind boat was quite good. Under full power, it could even ride the wind for a short time. A long while later, when Ji Yuan and Chiu Tianhai reached Qingba Island, they found that other cultivators were also arriving one after another. Earlier, the earthquake outside had been very violent. But once they were on Qingba Island, the tremors had lessened significantly. Stowing the spirit boat, Ji Yuan also breathed a sigh of relief. He and Chiu Tianhai found a rock to sit on. Both of them felt the joy of survivors who had escaped a catastrophe. Then Ji Yuan thought back. He couldn't help but wonder if the stone-armored crab's desperate thrashing before it died had caused the earthquake. The rich cave was connected to the mineral veins at the bottom of the lake, and the crab's strength was so immense. So it wasn't impossible. But he didn't care. As long as they made it out alive, that was all that mattered. The moment he felt the earthquake inside the cave, Ji Yuan truly thought he was going to die there. An earthquake, underwater, and in an underwater mine, no less. Any one of those was enough to be fatal, let alone all 3 combined. Just thinking about it made him shudder. But when he thought about the harvest from this trip, he couldn't help but feel a bit excited and expectant. Not to mention the storage bags of the 2 6-level cultivators. Just the cold iron sand they dug up in those 20 feet was already a huge amount of spirit stones. Ji Yuan estimated they had dug up over 20 pounds. Even if they split it, it could be sold for 200 spirit stones. He breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, he noticed many cultivators nearby also had joyful smiles on their faces. Chiu Tianhai explained in a low voice that the earthquake would bring up a lot of cold iron sand, and some active caves would turn into rich, accessible ones. So, once the earthquake settled, it would be time to pick up spirit stones, and they would be all over the ground. If they found another rich cave, it would be an even bigger windfall. Ji Yuan was about to discuss with Chiu Tianhai whether they should finish digging this batch of sand before leaving, or just leave as soon as the earthquake settled. But as he turned to look at Chiu Tianhai, he froze. Chiu Tianhai looked back at him in confusion. Ji Yuan said nothing. He just reached up and touched his own face. Chiu Tianhai understood immediately. He also touched his face and realized his original full beard had vanished. Even his other layers of disguise had been mostly washed away by the massive waves earlier, revealing his true face. Ji Yuan was in the same situation. He thought to himself that, in the end, he still hadn't learned any disguise techniques. Relying on just this bit of concealment was truly insufficient. He planned that after this was over, he definitely had to go to the 100 Treasure Pavilion to see if there were any suitable disguise techniques. While he was thinking, Ji Yuan also quietly observed the cultivators on the island. He was worried someone had seen his and Chiu Tianhai's true appearances, especially Chiu Tianhai's, because the Qin family likely had many eyes and ears left at Qingba Pool. Then Ji Yuan signaled with his eyes and turned to walk toward a less crowded area. He just reminded Chiu Tianhai that they would leave as soon as things stabilized. Chiu Tianhai also nodded in agreement. After waiting for about 2 hours, the churning Qingba Pool finally began to calm down. After another few minutes, when a cultivator steered his boat and jumped into the water, the other cultivators, who had been unable to contain themselves, followed suit one after another, steering their boats into the water. Ji Yuan and Chiu Tianhai also steered their boats and blended into the crowd. After traveling for a bit, their spirit boat dove down. The two of them dove into the water together. Right after they left, two cultivators on the island exchanged a glance and followed them from a distance. Ji Yuan held 2 spirit stones in his hands. He continuously circulated his cultivation technique to absorb the spiritual energy within, making up for the exhaustion from the previous battle. But in reality, he hadn't exhausted much, because his few strikes had mostly been using the life-taking needle to end lives. Even the Ghost Array was powered by spirit stones. It didn't consume his own spiritual energy at all. The two of them dove underwater for about a mile before resurfacing. They got their bearings. Then they headed straight toward the west. According to their original plan, they would go to the nearby Jingda market to sell the cold iron sand first before deciding what to do next. 2 hours later, the water had changed from deep blue to light blue, finally returning to the green color it was now. The persistent, biting cold in the air had also vanished. That meant they had finally left Qingba Pool. But Ji Yuan didn't feel relaxed at all, because not long after leaving Qingba Island, he had sensed a faint gaze staring at him. And even now, after leaving Qingba Pool, that feeling still hadn't faded. He turned to look at Chiu Tianhai. The latter nodded slightly, signaling that he also still felt it. If that was the case, they had likely exposed their identities back on Qingba Island. Now someone was chasing them. Ji Yuan looked left and right, finally choosing an island with a circumference of a few miles. The island wasn't high. Its highest point was only about 5 or 6 meters above the lake. The shore was all tidal flats. Only the center of the island had a few lush willow trees. He understood that if this wasn't resolved, the longer it dragged on, and the more time the Qin family had to arrive, the more troublesome it would become. So, after landing on this deserted island, Ji Yuan turned around to look back at the path they had come. He called out in a deep voice for the person who had been following them to show themselves. While speaking, he poured spiritual energy, instantly refining the 2 storage bags from the Liu brothers. A major battle was about to erupt. He had to see if those 2 good big brothers had left any trump cards. They had occupied Qingba Pool for so long, and since they died so miserably, they must have left behind quite a few good things. As his mind delved into the bags, his eyes immediately lit up. At the same time, 2 spirit boats also surfaced on the lake, one on the left and one on the right, surrounding the island, and also surrounding Ji Yuan and Chiu Tianhai. After checking the items in the storage bags, Ji Yuan felt much more at ease. He turned to look at the two figures appearing on his left and right. As he expected, they were the two tall men he had seen beside Qinwei earlier. Huda said in a deep voice that this was a grudge between the Qin family and Xiu Tianhai, advising Ji Yuan that it would be best not to get involved. Ji Yuan casually brushed off the spirit stone dust from his hands, feeling that his Dantian Sea of Qi had recovered to its peak state. He replied with a cold laugh. If you want to kill us, then kill us. If not, then get lost. Don't waste your breath. Seeing that he was determined to see this through to the end, they said they would send him on his way. With that, the two of them simultaneously stomped one foot on their spirit boats. Their bodies leaped into the air, lunging straight toward the island. Ji Yuan and Xiu Tianhai split left and right, each taking action. Ji Yuan, of course, summoned the white water flying sword. A streak of white light shot through the air. Huda had just landed on the ground. Seeing Ji Yuan attack, he didn't panic. Instead, a green light flashed from his wrist. In an instant, a green cage of light enveloped his body. The white water flying sword lunged, but was blocked by this cage of light. Ji Yuan recognized it as a defensive Dharma treasure, and a mid-grade one at that. His eyes immediately lit up. His right hand flicked out several streaks of spiritual light, while also calling his flying sword back. Just as Huda thought Ji Yuan was planning to temporarily retreat, he hurriedly looked up. He saw streaks of purple lightning rolling clearly above his head. Not just one streak, but an entire field of them. On the opposite side, in Ji Yuan's hand, 5 mid-grade Thunderstrike talismans were slowly burning into ash. Of these 5, he had provided 2 himself. The other 3 were taken from Lu Da's storage bag. Agauda Kursid. He hurriedly slapped a high-grade defensive talisman on himself. Against this kind of lightning dharma, a mid-grade defensive talisman was a joke. If he didn't want to die, he had to use a high-grade one. The two of them clashed in an instant. Meanwhile, on the other side of the island, Xiu Tianhai and Zhang Kai had also begun their battle. But in reality, Xiu Tianhai was having a much harder time. He was only at the 5th level of Qi condensation. Plus, his Dharma treasures and talismans were no match for Zhang Kai's, who came from the Qin family. So before long, he was being beaten back repeatedly. A single 6th-level cultivator could push him into such a corner. Yet earlier, the Qin family had sent 3 6th-level cultivators at once. If Ji Yuan hadn't been here, he almost certainly would have died. It was the same now. Ji Yuan, having just used a bunch of talismans to gain the upper hand, saw Xiu Tianhai falling into a dangerous situation. If that was the case, he couldn't worry about too much else. Ji Yuan took a few quick steps, moving between Zhang Kai and Huda, just as Xiu Tianhai thought he was going to take on both of them at once. Ji Yuan flipped his right hand. A small black flag suddenly appeared in his hand. The small flag grew as it met the wind, instantly reaching normal size. Ji Yuan flipped his hand and slammed the flag into the ground, activating the Yin Ghost Array. Pitch black mist immediately billowed out from the ground, engulfing all 4 of them inside, eventually covering the entire middle of the island. Xiu Tianhai was initially startled by this dense Yin energy. But then he remembered it was Ji Yuan's doing, so he stopped worrying. Immediately after, Ji Yuan's voice echoed in his ear, telling him that he would soon let him appear behind the enemy. As long as he had even a bit of vision, he should go ahead and launch a sneak attack. Without hesitation, Xiu Tianhai said nothing. He just nodded. At that same moment, Huda saw the black mist in front of him thin out slightly. A figure was standing with their back to him, covered in a layer of white light. Knowing the time had come, he first threw out 2 mid-grade offensive talismans. Next, the 2 crescent moon sabers on his back shot out through the air. Then he released over a dozen water blades. On the other side, Ji Yuan released 2 5th-level Yin ghosts. They shrieked as they lunged forward, controlling 3 spells at once, multitasking 3 different things. Ji Yuan also felt immense pressure. Zhang Kai, having just fallen into the black mist, immediately realized something was wrong. He hurriedly activated his fluorescent shield, while also clutching a high-grade defensive talisman in his hand. In a life-saving moment, he absolutely didn't dare to be stingy. As soon as he heard a strange movement above his head, he immediately crushed the talisman. Behind 2 layers of defense, he spun around abruptly. His clasped hands suddenly flew open. A flying dagger, 2 fingers wide, instantly split into 5. They tore through the black mist and shot forward. Sensing the movement, Ji Yuan knew things were taking a turn for the worse and quickly pushed the illusion array to cloud Zhang Kai's vision. He made Zhang Kai feel as though Jiu Tianhai was rapidly retreating. Naturally, Zhang Kai's flying daggers followed in hot pursuit. But in reality, Jiu Tianhai hadn't moved an inch. Feeling the flying daggers whistle past him, Jiu Tianhai couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Ji Yuan realized that Jiu Tianhai alone probably wouldn't be enough to take this guy down. If he didn't want to waste any more time, he'd have to step in himself. He told Jiu Tianhai to keep the opponent pinned down for a moment. Hearing the voice echoing in his ear, Jiu Tianhai gave a slight nod. He once again manipulated his scimitars, relentlessly slashing at Zhang Kai. Meanwhile, Ji Yuan pulled out a high-grade offensive talisman, the Golden Seal Talisman. During his last encounter with the Ghost Island Lord, he had nearly been crushed by this very thing. So, he knew exactly how much power it packed. Seeing Zhang Kai occupied by Jiu Tianhai, Ji Yuan crushed the talisman, the Golden Seal Talisman. Once a high-grade offensive talisman was unleashed, the sheer pressure it exerted was on a whole different level. On the other side, Huda, who was locked in a stalemate with 2 Yin ghosts, noticed the shift. He shouted Zhang Kai's name at the top of his lungs. Then, he pulled out 2 more high-grade offensive talismans. Adding the high-grade protection talisman he had used earlier, he had burned through 3 high-grade talismans in the blink of an eye. Ji Yuan couldn't help but curse under his breath. Damn, these family-backed cultivators really are loaded. After all, cultivators from clans and sects were always wealthier than rogue ones. Even though the Qin family was just a small Qi refining clan rooted in the market, they had powerful backing. After decades of growth, their cultivators were significantly richer than your average fisherman. Who'd have guessed he had likely fallen into an array? But when it came to arrays, he was completely clueless. His only option was to break the formation with brute force. The moment Ji Yuan saw him crush those 2 high-grade talismans, he immediately recalled the 2 Yin ghosts with a single thought. Then, he opened one side of the array. 2 massive golden swords swept through the air. The world suddenly brightened before Huda's eyes. But this light wasn't from his own attack. It was because Ji Yuan had opened the array on purpose. The giant swords struck nothing but empty air. Even so, they left a massive trail of sword light lingering in the sky. Uda curse din frustration. He had basically wasted 2 high-grade offensive talismans for nothing. However, it wasn't a total loss. At least it forced the opponent to open the array. He lunged forward. A green light flashed from the boots on his feet. In an instant, he had escaped the array. But just as he made his exit, a blood-curdling scream echoed from within the formation. Jiu Tianhai watched as 2 Yin ghosts suddenly appeared, tearing at Zhang Kai's head. The sight was so terrifying he didn't even dare to step closer. Seeing that Zhang Kai was thoroughly dead, Ji Yuan recalled the Yin ghosts. Then, he deactivated the Yin ghost array. The black mist on the island slowly dissipated. Ji Yuan's figure gradually emerged. He pressed his index and middle fingers together into a sword gesture. With an expressionless face, he swung his hand forward. The white water flying sword shot out like a stream of rushing water. It lunged forward to claim a life. Buddha once again deployed his glowing shield. But this time, Ji Yuan didn't rush to retract his sword. Instead, he poured all his strength into driving it forward. Not only that, Jiu Tianhai's 2 crescent scimitars were also pushed to their limit. They clashed fiercely with Huda's 5 flying daggers. The daggers seemed to be standard issue gear. Since both Qin family members had a set, the air was filled with the constant screech of clashing metal. Sparks flew in every direction, just as Huda was trying to figure out how to break Ji Yuan's flying sword first. He caught a glimpse of a red glint hidden within the white sword light. He quickly slapped 2 protection talismans onto himself. But this time they were only mid-grade. For someone like him, high-grade talismans were a rare commodity. Once they were gone, they were gone. The life-taking needle appeared again, but it was blocked by his 2 consecutive talismans. Looking at the needle, just inches away, Huda broke into a cold sweat from the shock. He knew that if he had noticed it even a second later, he would have been a dead man. But in the very next moment, Huda suddenly spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. He looked down in utter disbelief. From the sandy beach where he stood, an earth-colored Dharma sword had surged out of nowhere. This sword had shattered every layer of his defense in an instant, piercing straight through his body. Across from him, a high-grade talisman in Ji Yuan's hand had just crumbled into ash. This high-grade offensive earth sword talisman was something he had looted from Lu Air's storage bag. And throughout this entire fight, whether it was the initial talismans, the flying sword that followed, or even the life-taking needle, they were all just decoys. The real killing blow was this single high-grade talisman. To ensure the strike landed, Ji Yuan had even exposed the life-taking needle hidden in the white water flying sword. He used it to lure the opponent into a false sense of security. Buddha was dead. Ji Yuan raised his hand to retrieve his flying sword and needle. He then told Jiu Tianhai to finish looting the bodies so they could leave quickly. With that, he walked over to Hu Da's corpse. First, he reached out and took the man's storage bag. He had been eyeing that set of flying daggers for a while. They were mid-grade artifacts. They could be used as a single blade or split into 5. A perfect tool for a sneak attack. Hu Da's boots were also magic artifacts. They could boost the wearer's speed. Another great find. Whether for fighting or fleeing, they were incredibly useful. The man was also wearing a magic treasure. But unfortunately, the Earth Sword Talisman had ruined it. It could only be sold for scrap now. After a moment, once he was sure nothing was left behind, Ji Yuan poured a drop of corpse-dissolving water on the body. That was that. On the other side, Jiu Tianhai had finished looting Zhang Kai. After destroying the evidence, the two of them regrouped. It was then that Ji Yuan noticed blood seeping through the fabric at Jiu Tianhai's waist. He realized the man was injured. Jiu Tianhai said it was just a graze from a blade. It was fine. He had already taken some medicine. Ji Yuan nodded at that. He told him they should head out, just as the two reached the shore, preparing to launch their Dharma boat and leave. A flying boat descended from the sky. It landed on the water right in front of them. A figure in a black robe stood on the boat. The oversized robe completely concealed their body. It was impossible to tell if it was a man or a woman. Jiu Tianhai instinctively summoned his scimitars. Ji Yuan felt a chill run down his spine. Anyone who could pilot a flying boat here had to be a late-stage cultivator. He immediately suspected it was someone from the Qin family. He spoke slowly, saying that if they came in friendship, they were welcome. But if they came for a fight, that would be a different story. As he spoke, Ji Yuan pulled out the Yin ghost flag again. He planted it in the sand by the shore. His voice dropped an octave, turning cold. He even gave the Yin ghost array an intentionally over-the-top, intimidating name. He hoped it might scare the opponent off, even just a little. A woman's laughter drifted out from beneath the black robe. Then, the figure finally pulled back the hood. She casually tossed her long, dark hair back. She looked up, fixing her flirtatious, peach blossom eyes on Ji Yuan. With a smile, she asked when the Yin ghost array had suddenly gotten such a grand name. Seeing her face, Ji Yuan was genuinely stunned. He immediately recognized the woman before him. She was the one with the peach blossom eyes he had met at Shop 18 when he was looking for bone-corroding flowers. He hadn't expected to run into her here. Furthermore, judging by her demeanor, she had likely seen him kill those two from the Qin family. Ji Yuan quickly assessed her strength as late-stage qi refining. At the same time, he mentally checked his storage bag. He calculated what he had left, including the items from Luda and Lu Air's bags. He still had 3 high-grade protection talismans. 2 of these, plus 1 water beam talisman. As for high-grade offensive talismans, he had 2 left. 1 demon-suppressing talisman and 1 heaven sword talisman. Diyuani saw right through him. She laughed and asked if he was currently calculating whether or not he could kill her. Having been called out so bluntly, Ji Yuan could only manage a forced smile. He said he was just a bit surprised and happy to see her here. But clearly, he couldn't keep up the act. He gave a dry cough, desperately trying to change the subject. He asked what business she had here. He had intended to casually add that if she needed help, she should just say the word. But he swallowed the words before they could leave his mouth. He was afraid that if she actually asked for something, he wouldn't know how to handle it. Du Yuani said bluntly that she had come looking for him. Ji Yuan could hardly believe his ears. He immediately racked his brain, trying to remember if he had ever crossed paths with him before. But no matter how much he thought, the only time was when he bought the bone-corroding flower. Do you I need give a slight no? She glanced at Xiao Tianhai before looking back at Ji Yuan. She told him that if he trusted her, they should go talk over there. With that, she turned and steered her flying boat toward a small nearby island. Ji Yuan turned to look at Xiao Tianhai. He knew full well that if a fight broke out, Xiao Tianhai wouldn't be able to help. In fact, he'd only be a distraction that Ji Yuan would have to protect. Xiao Tianhai obviously realized this too. He smiled and said that since Du Yuan wanted to talk to Ji Yuan, he wouldn't tag along. He then looked toward Jingda Ward. He signaled that he would wait up ahead. Ji Yuan nodded in agreement. The two of them split up immediately. Ji Yuan then headed toward the island where the female cultivator was waiting. He knew he couldn't outrun her even if he tried. Her Dharma boat was clearly of a much higher grade. Since that was the case, he might as well see what she had to say. After all, there was no bad blood between them. Besides, judging by her aura, she didn't seem like an enemy. Just as he was about to address her as senior, Ji Yuan was cut off by Du Yuan. She told him not to call her senior anymore. She said her name was Du Yuan. He could just call her by her name. Ji Yuan cupped his hand slightly. He smiled and introduced himself as Lu Changshen. Du Yuan just glanced at him and immediately called him out. She said Ji Yuan should just be Ji Yuan. Why bother giving a fake name? Then she asked with a hint of amusement if she looked like a bad person. Or maybe a bandit. Is that why he was being so cautious? Being exposed on the spot once again? Ji Yuan couldn't help but blush. He cleared his throat and admitted it was just a habit. He was just used to it. Du Yuan didn't press him further. She said she was someone who valued directness, so she'd get straight to the point. Finding him this time wasn't a bad thing. On the contrary, it was a huge opportunity. Ji Yuan was even more surprised to hear about a huge opportunity. He couldn't understand what kind of great thing would fall into his lap. Du Yuan nodded slightly. She said that with the ghost array in his possession, he definitely had the strength of a late-stage qi refining cultivator now. Moreover, she could see he wasn't far from breaking through to the late stage himself. So, letting him join the organization early wouldn't be a problem. Du Yuan looked Ji Yuan up and down as she spoke. Ji Yuan was confused by the mention of joining early. He asked what exactly he was joining. Du Yuan mentioned the Water Dragon Sect Support Association. But Ji Yuan shook his head. He said he had never heard of it. Du Yuan told him to sit down before she continued. At the same time, she took 2 chairs out of her storage bag. Ji Yuan thanked her and sat down. Du Yuan paused for a moment, as if she were organizing her words. Then she said that with Ji Yuan's talent, joining the Water Dragon Sect was basically a done deal. But to be honest, even if he joined, he'd only be the most ordinary kind of disciple. To afford the costs of cultivation, people like them still had to take on all sorts of menial tasks for the sect, like working at the Baibao Pavilion in the market. Ji Yuan understood this perfectly. For anyone else, joining the Water Dragon Sect was obviously a good thing. But for him, with his construction panel, right now, it was a double-edged sword. If he waited until he reached the peak of qi refining, or even until he was ready for a foundation establishment before joining, there would be all benefits. Du Yuan continued to explain that while Water Dragon Sect disciples might look the same on the surface, in reality, they were divided into many ranks. The best, naturally, were the cultivation seeds with heavenly spiritual roots. The moment they joined, they'd be taken in as disciples by Golden Core stage elders. Next were the cultivators with dual or triple spiritual roots from cultivation clans. They had high-tier talent, and they had powerful forces backing them. So, they thrived within the Water Dragon Sect like fish in water. After them were the dual and triple spiritual root cultivators from ordinary backgrounds. They didn't have a background, but because their talent wasn't bad, they had a good chance of reaching foundation establishment. So, they were still valued by various factions. At this point, Du Yuan couldn't help but sigh. She said the hardest path was for people like them. No background, poor spiritual root quality, relying entirely on reaching the late stage of qi refining just to get into the Water Dragon Sect. In the eyes of some, they have no hope of foundation establishment. Combined with their lowly origins, they're the kind of people who are easily ordered around. Just give them a few scraps of profit, and you can work them like dogs. Ji Yuan looked up. He clenched his fists in solidarity. He said in a low voice that they absolutely couldn't let it be like that. And they shouldn't have to. Duyuani immediately nodded vigorously. She said that's exactly why she mentioned their water dragon sect support association. Ji Yuan said he was all ears. He asked Duyuani to enlighten him. He felt that, on the surface, it sounded like something worthwhile. But whether it would actually benefit him was something he'd have to figure out after hearing more. Duyuani then thoughtfully explained that the organization was originally started within the water dragon sect. The reason was that several seniors from the Yunwu marsh markets weren't having a good time in the sect. So, those seniors who got along well spontaneously banded together. They helped each other out. They exchanged resources and information. And eventually, they managed to gain a solid foothold. Over time, the organization expanded to the markets in Yunwu Marsh. That's why even cultivators who haven't joined the sect yet, like them, would link up beforehand. Yi Yuan listened intently. Once she finished, he asked if this support association had any oaths or strict rules. If the rules were too rigid, he'd have to think twice. Duyuani nodded slightly. She said there were 3 main points to the oath. First, if a member faces a life or death crisis, the others must do their best to help them through it. Second, if a member is unfortunately killed, the others must do their best to seek revenge. Third, members are forbidden from killing one another. If there's a conflict, the association will step in to mediate. Ji Yuan frowned slightly after hearing this. He asked why the first 2 points used the phrase do their best. What exactly did doing one's best mean? And as for the third point, if it really came down to a life or death struggle, could the association actually stop it? Duyuani explained. She said doing one's best means acting within one's own capabilities. She gave an example. If someone in the association offended the water dragon sect and got killed by them, were they really expected to go and seek revenge against the sect? The first point of the oath followed the same logic. As for the third point, if there was truly a blood feud, the association wouldn't be able to stop it. Ji Yuan felt that was reasonable. His biggest fear was that the oath had actual, binding requirements. Now it seemed these were just verbal agreements. The constraints weren't that heavy. Duyuani chuckled softly and said that if there were too many restrictions, they wouldn't have joined either. After all, anyone who can reach the late stage of qi refining in a hellhole like Yunwu Marsh isn't going to be an idiot. So, based on Duyuani's words, this so-called Water Dragon Sect Support Association was actually just a loose alliance of interests, the kind that would crumble at the slightest poke. Duyuani then added that regarding their gatherings, they held one on the 18th of every month. At those times, they'd trade resources if they had them, or exchange information. If you're free, you come. If not, you don't. Additionally, when a new member joins, they hold a meeting so everyone can meet the newcomer and get acquainted. At this point, everything that needed to be said had been said. Duyuani stopped. She blinked. She smiled at Ji Yuan. She seemed to be waiting for his answer. Ji Yuan thought for a moment before asking if all the late-stage qi refining cultivators in Yunwu Marsh had joined the association. Duyuani said that was obviously impossible. While most were part of their association, there were some who were loners. They didn't like socializing with others. And then there were some. Duyuani paused for a moment before continuing. Besides those, there were some who didn't want to join the Water Dragon sect. Or more accurately, they couldn't join. So they formed their own group called the Yunwu Marsh Alliance. And the head of the Qin family, the one Ji Yuan had offended, Old Blind Qin, a level 10 qi refining cultivator, he was the leader of that Yunwu Marsh Alliance. Ji Yuan was a bit taken aback by that. Duyuani gave a slight response. A hint of disdain flashed in her eyes. She said it was just a poor imitation. How could it possibly compare to their Water Dragon Sect Support Association? Besides, even Old Blind Qin's son was a member of their support association. It made sense, really. The Yunwu Marsh Alliance was only relevant within the confines of the marsh. But the support association was different, especially for those who had already joined the Water Dragon sect. Ji Yuan nodded slightly. Then he asked if Duyuani had seen everything that just happened. Duyuani casually admitted she had. She also told Ji Yuan not to worry. It was just a minor Qin family, after all. As long as he joined the Mutual Aid Society and had the seniors of the Water Dragon sect backing him up, even Old Blind Qin wouldn't dare to make things difficult for him. That line of thinking was likely true. The first covenant of the Mutual Aid Society was that if a disciple faced a life or death crisis, others must help. If they truly provoked a powerful enemy, the society might not be able to do much. But clearly, as far as the Mutual Aid Society was concerned, The Qin family wasn't considered a major threat, since that was the case, and the organization was loose, with no weird pills to swallow or grand oaths to swear. Ji Yuan stood up with a smile. He signaled that he would be relying on Du Yuan's help from now on. Seeing him agree to join, Du Yuan's smile became a bit more genuine. She stood up as well. With a flick of her wrist, she took a jade token from her storage bag and handed it to him. She explained that this was the token of the Mutual Aid Society. It was also a small gift crafted for them by a senior in the sect. It contained a protective restriction. Once activated, it was equivalent to a first-grade high-quality protective talisman. However, it could only be used once. Ji Yuan didn't expect such benefits right after joining. He accepted it with both hands. He expressed that the seniors were indeed very thoughtful. Seeing Du Yuan about to speak again, Ji Yuan spoke first, saying it wouldn't be long before he broke through to the late stage. So he wanted to ask if the meeting could be postponed for a few days. Could they wait until after his breakthrough to talk? Du Yuan replied that it was certainly possible. Once Ji Yuan was ready, he could contact the society's disciples at the Tangtu market near him, or he could go directly to the Jia 3 house in the Taiyan district to find her. Ji Yuan nodded in agreement. After that, Du Yuan took her leave. Watching her fly away on her spirit boat, Ji Yuan couldn't help but feel a bit envious. But he knew that day wasn't far off, with the spoils from his trip. Breaking through to the late stage of qi refining wouldn't be a problem, and buying a spirit boat wouldn't be an issue either. Furthermore, through their conversation just now, Ji Yuan had a very clear realization. Only by reaching the late stage of qi refining could one truly enter the circle of cultivators in Yunwu Marsh. Before this, he really was just a fisherman, just like a fisherman born to catch fish. Thinking of this, Ji Yuan breathed a sigh of relief. In any case, the immediate problems seemed mostly resolved. Next, he just needed to organize the spoils from this trip. He'd meet Xiao Tianhai to split the loot, then head to the Jingda market, sell what needed to be sold, buy what needed to be bought, and then prepare to break through to the late stage of qi refining. Ji Yuan steered his boat toward the Jingda market. In less than the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, he spotted Xiao Tianhai in a patch of reeds. As soon as they met, he checked to see if anyone was following. Xiao Tianhai replied that there was no one. Seeing that, Ji Yuan said since that was the case, they should split the loot from this trip first. Just the storage bags alone, not yet inventoried. He had 3 on him. All 3 belonged to 6th level qi refining cultivators. Not to mention over 20 pounds of cold iron sand and the corpse of a stone-armored crab. Hearing this, Xiao Tianhai perked up despite his injuries. He pulled out Zhang Kai's storage bag. He said he had quite a few good things on his end as well. But then he added that they only needed to split the 2 bags from the Qin family. The 2 bags from the Liu brothers and the remaining cold iron sand should all go to Ji Yuan. Ji Yuan, having just pulled out the 3 storage bags, looked up at Xiao Tianhai. He reminded him that they had agreed to split everything 50-50. But Xiao Tianhai argued that when it came to killing them, he hadn't contributed at all. It was all Ji Yuan's doing. Besides, this whole mess started because of him, and he had dragged Ji Yuan into this desperate flight for their lives. So it was settled. According to him, all of those things should belong to Ji Yuan. If he took those treasures, his conscience would truly be uneasy. He probably wouldn't even be able to sleep at night. Ji Yuan saw that Xiao Tianhai wasn't faking it, so he finally nodded. Only then did Xiao Tianhai breathe a sigh of relief. A smile even appeared on his face. He cursed under his breath about how rich the Qin family was, to have so many good things on them. After saying that, he dumped everything out of the storage bag. Ji Yuan naturally noticed this as well. Setting everything else aside, this storage bag alone was larger than his. The one he was using was still the basic 1 cubic foot model. It was starting to feel far too small. For instance, he had no place to put that stone-armored crab he killed. However, Huda's storage bag was 3 cubic feet wide. The space inside was clearly much larger. Xiao Tianhai reached in casually. He pulled out all the magic tools. He realized there were quite a few of them. Each of those 2 had a flying dagger magic tool. The same went for the fluorescent shield protective tools. It seemed the Qin family had specially prepared these for them. The one who fought Xiao Tianhai was killed by the Golden Seal Talisman and the Yin Ghost, so his robes were undamaged. But only the one who fought Ji Yuan had magic boots. After some discussion, they took 1 flying dagger and 1 fluorescent shield each. The intact magic robes were given to Qiu Tianhai. Ji Yuan took the boots. They also split the 2 mid-grade spirit boats between them. As for the talismans, the high-grade ones were all gone. After such a fierce battle, naturally, any good items that could be used had been exhausted. Even the last one Ji Yuan killed had to use a mid-grade protective talisman. The remaining talismans and pills weren't anything rare. The 2 of them split them evenly. Ji Yuan estimated their value. If sold, they'd fetch about 40 or 50 spirit stones. There weren't many spirit stones left. They had probably been used by those 2 for cultivation. After splitting them, Ji Yuan only received 12. But the spirit stones in the Liu brothers' bags were significantly more. Ji Yuan took a glance. Not counting the talismans and pills, the spirit stones alone totaled 108. He couldn't help but marvel inwardly, as expected of the most famous bandits of Qingba Pond. Those 2 didn't have many magic tools, though. Each only had 1 offensive tool and 1 defensive tool. It seemed they specialized in one type, rather than relying on overwhelming resources like Ji Yuan did. Now, he had over 10 magic tools on him alone. If he used them all, he'd truly be armed to the teeth. He even managed to get a pair of rare magic boots. Even if they were only low-grade, the defensive tools of those 2 were the most common shield types, and they were both mid-grade. So, it was time for Ji Yuan's dragon armor shield to retire. He did a basic refinement on both. Liu Da's iron-focused shield was called the gold iron shield. Liu Er's curved shield was called the lampwood shield. The gold iron shield seemed a bit heavy, but its defense was stronger. When necessary, it could expand to 30 feet to protect the whole body. The lampwood shield was lighter and more agile, easier to control. Ji Yuan wasn't short on spirit stones now. After some thought, he decided to keep both shields. He'd choose which one to use, depending on the battlefield. Besides, the Liu brothers' main weapons caught his attention even more, because both of them used water-parting spikes. Ji Yuan took them out one by one, holding them in his hands. He felt something wasn't quite right. Qiu Tianhai leaned in a look and muttered that these 2 spikes seemed to be a set. Ji Yuan felt the same, so he immediately said he'd try to refine them. With that, he let his spiritual energy flow into them. After a few breaths, there was a sharp clink. The 2 spikes in his hands suddenly merged. Their hilts fused into one. Then they gradually lengthened. They transformed into a long spear with blades at both ends. Ji Yuan immediately realized this was a high-grade magic tool. He gripped it firmly. With a casual swing, it immediately trailed a blue, watery glow. The cold light was piercing. At the same time, a stream of memories entered his mind. He examined them, and his eyes lit up. He finally understood how those 2 brothers could kill a late-stage qi refining cultivator. Qiu Tianhai asked for the reason. Yi Yuan explained that this high-grade magic tool was called the water-parting dragon spear. It had a powerful spell inscribed within. When attacking, it could summon a water dragon. That must have been the move they used to kill the late-stage cultivator. Furthermore, it could normally be split into 2 parts and used as 2 mid-grade magic tools. Qiu Tianhai understood after hearing this. Ji Yuan weighed it in his hand. With his current mid-stage qi refining cultivation, using this high-grade tool would likely be extremely draining. That was probably why the Liu brothers kept it split into mid-grade tools. But fortunately, it wouldn't be long. Once he broke through to the late stage, he'd be able to wield this water-parting dragon spear freely. By then, whether in close quarters or at a distance, he wouldn't have to fear anyone. After putting away his first high-grade magic tool, Ji Yuan looked at the remaining items in the storage bag. There were 2 high-grade talismans left. Both were protective talismans from Liu Er's bag. There were only 2 high-grade talismans left. Both were protective talismans taken from Liu Er's storage bag. They were called water dragon shields. Their effect was quite similar to Ji Yuan's fluorescent shield. This would save him the trouble of buying defensive equipment. However, he still found one thing puzzling. Why weren't there any high-grade offensive talismans in those 2 storage bags? Aside from the 1 high-grade talisman Liu De used to kill the stone-armored crab, did the 2 brothers really only have one between them? Ji Yuan felt that was impossible. The Liu brothers shouldn't have been that poor. Right after that, he continued rummaging through the storage bag. Finally, he pulled out 2 black stones. Holding them in his hand, they looked more like medicinal pills. They even had a bit of weight to them. The moment he took them out, Ji Yuan immediately felt a dangerous aura emanating from within. Jiu Tianhai recognized them too. He couldn't help but widen his eyes. Ji Yuan confirmed his suspicions. At the same time, he thought it was a stroke of luck that they hadn't used these in that damn cave. Otherwise, just thinking about it gave him the chills. These water thunder beads were a type of artifact, but they were single-use items. Once activated and thrown, they would explode with immense power, nearly equivalent to a full-strength strike from someone at the peak of chi refinement. It was even said that above the water thunder beads, there was an artifact called the Heavenly Thunder Bead. Once triggered, it was equivalent to a full-strength blow from someone at the peak of Foundation establishment. Ji Yuan was about to offer one to Jiu Tianhai, but the other man was quick to refuse. He said he didn't need it. He told Ji Yuan to keep them for himself. Looking at Jiu Tianhai, Ji Yuan could tell he was terrified of owing any favors. He didn't push the matter further. Instead, he took out some mid-grade talismans and various pills from the storage bag that he didn't need. He told him not to refuse this time. After all, he had no use for them. Only then did Jiu Tianhai agree. Items that outsiders would fight tooth and nail for. Seemed like useless junk in their hands. They just kept pushing them back and forth to each other. As for the remaining stone-armored crab carcass, Ji Yuan used his white water-flying sword to pry it open. But there was no roe or eggs inside. There wasn't even much meat. In the end, he had to take it to the Hunter Treasures Pavilion to sell for spirit stones. Yet, these weren't even the most valuable things in their storage bags. The real treasure was that pile of cold iron sand. Ji Yuan weighed it roughly. It should be around 24 or 25 caddies. This stuff, Jiu Tianhai refused to take it, no matter what. He even said that as long as he wanted it, he could get as much as he liked. Ji Yuan glanced at his own storage bag, adding what he dug up in that cursed cave to the stash he had collected over the past few days. The total came to about 41 caddies. Selling all of this at once would be a massive windfall. Once they finished dividing the loot, the two of them set off again. They headed toward the Hunter Treasures Pavilion in Jingda. They had already made one harvest before. Now it was time for the second. This time, Ji Yuan had acquired quite a few artifacts. But there weren't many he actually wanted to sell. There was only one damaged mid-grade artifact, 2 low-grade robes, and 3 mid-grade flying boats. He kept the rest of the artifacts for himself. When they arrived, the water dragon sect cultivator on duty at Jingdo Ward was no different from the one at the market. He had that same arrogant, insufferable look on his face. Ji Yuan stated he was there to sell artifacts, and directly took out the items he wanted to sell. He laid them out on the table. The duty cultivator, who had been lounging in his armchair, immediately stood up upon seeing them. He first appraised the artifacts, especially the 3 flying boats. Only then did he look up. He stared at the disguised Ji Yuan with a serious expression. He smiled meaningfully, as if to say he hadn't expected someone so honest-looking to be such a ruthless character. Ji Yuan, with his middle-aged face, merely forced a smile. He said it was all just a stroke of luck. The cultivator told him to wait a moment for the appraisal. Ji Yuan cupped his hands and thanked him for the trouble. Immediately after, the duty cultivator picked up the artifacts to examine them thoroughly. As for the 3 flying boats, he even performed a brief refinement to check their quality. Half an incense stick later, he finally gave a price. He said the 3 flying boats would be bought for 125 spirit stones. This mid-grade artifact was originally of decent quality, but that sword strike was too brutal. It had destroyed the internal restrictions, so it could only be valued at 20 spirit stones. As for the 2 remaining low-grade artifacts, one was valued at 22 spirit stones. The total came to 189 spirit stones. Ji Yuan listened and then paused thoughtfully. He suggested the man round it up, make it an even 190 spirit stones. Spirit stones were precious. Every single one had to be cherished. Getting even one more was a win, perhaps because the items Ji Yuan was selling were already highly profitable. The duty cultivator didn't hesitate and casually agreed. After selling the artifacts, Ji Yuan went to the next room to sell the talismans and pills. Those 2 didn't fetch much. Combined, they only brought in 45 spirit stones. On the other hand, the stone armor crab carcass he had high hopes for didn't sell for much either. The best material on that crab for refining artifacts was its intact shell, but Lu Da's final sword strike had hacked a hole right through it. According to the duty cultivator, if the shell had been whole, it might have sold for 60 or 70 spirit stones. But now, at most, it was only worth 40. So, adding in the spirit stones he already had, even without selling the cold iron sand, the number of spirit stones Ji Yuan had reached a staggering 504. He couldn't help it. He had just sold nearly 300 stones worth of goods here, plus the 100 or so he looted from the Liu brothers, and the dozens he got from selling cold iron sand at Qingba earlier. Looking at the massive amount of spirit stones in his storage bag, Ji Yuan thought for a moment and felt there was no rush to sell the cold iron sand. The stones he had now were enough for his breakthrough to the late stage. If he sold all 41 pounds of cold iron sand, he'd have over 1,000 low-grade spirit stones in total. That would be over 10 mid-grade stones. Besides, with the current situation in Yunwu Marsh, the price of cold iron sand was likely to keep rising, so he could either wait for the price to go up more, or wait until after his breakthrough. He could sell it then when he needed stones for a flying boat or better artifacts. After some thought, Ji Yuan specifically exchanged for 4 mid-grade spirit stones at Baibao Pavilion. Compared to low-grade stones, the quality of spiritual energy in mid-grade stones was significantly higher. It wasn't necessary for daily cultivation, but when breaking through, using higher quality energy would be at least somewhat helpful. However, those 4 mid-grade stones cost Ji Yuan 408 low-grade stones. In other words, 1 mid-grade stone cost 102 low-grade stones. He couldn't help but feel like he was being ripped off. But for the sake of the breakthrough, he had no choice. With that settled, he left Baibao Pavilion. Qiu Tianhai was already waiting at the door. The two of them headed straight for the shore. Qiu Tianhai looked out at the vast Yunwu Marsh and quietly asked about the next plan. He said he planned to find a deserted island. He'd break through to the 6th level of Qi refining first, and then see. He also asked if Ji Yuan was planning to head straight back to the market. Ji Yuan clasped his hands behind his back. His green robes fluttered in the offshore wind. He said his breakthrough to the late stage might take a bit longer. Plus, Yunwu Marsh wasn't exactly peaceful, so he might need someone to stand guard for him. He asked if Qiu Tianhai was willing. Qiu Tianhai, who had been feeling a bit down, immediately perked up. Ji Yuan then explained his idea. They both needed to break through. Nowhere was truly safe. So why not rent a courtyard here in Jingda Ward? They could guard each other. They could figure out the rest after they both broke through. This was the plan Ji Yuan had come up with on the way to Jingda. It seemed like the most stable option for now, because whether Qiu Tianhai went to a deserted island, or he went back to the market to break through, there were risks involved. In a marsh, they'd worry about being disturbed, and back at the market, he'd worry about the Qin family's desperation. But if he waited until he reached the late stage before going back, he'd have nothing to fear. Even if that old blind Qin came in person, Ji Yuan might not necessarily be afraid. Qiu Tianhai was overjoyed to hear this. He praised it as a great idea. He immediately urged them to go rent a courtyard first. Try to get money out of the water dragon sect was nearly impossible. But if you wanted to give them money, it was incredibly easy. In less than an hour, Ji Yuan and Qiu Tianhai had rented a place in Jingda Ward. The breakthrough was finally right in front of them. On the other side, at Qingba Lake, Qin Wei was asking the guy beside him in a low voice if he was sure Hu De and the other had followed them. The long-faced man was so nervous he waved his hands frantically. He insisted they had all seen the 2 Qin family seniors go into the water. As for where they went after that, he truly didn't know. Qin Wei's brow furrowed deeply. Yesterday, after receiving the message, he had rushed here from market, and now a whole night had passed. There was still no word from Hu De and the others. He guessed that they had most likely run into trouble, because if they hadn't, with Hu De and his group's methods, there was no way they wouldn't have returned by now. Thinking of this, Qin Wei's frown deepened. He pulled a portrait out of his storage bag. If Ji Yuan were here, he would definitely recognize the person in the portrait as himself. It even captured his slightly disheveled appearance from when he first arrived on Qingba Island during the earthquake. The artist's skill was exceptional. The drawing was incredibly lifelike. Qin Wei asked if they recognized this man. Even though he had already checked once, he still wasn't satisfied. The long-faced cultivator once again firmly stated that he didn't know him. He had never seen him before. He was certain the man was a newcomer following Qiu Tianhai. Hearing this, Qin Wei put the portrait away. He judged that if that was the case, the man was either from the market or from Blackwater Ward. Then he asked where Hanji Island was. The man heard this and asked if he was looking for the Qingba twin heroes. Qin Wei nodded indifferently. Qingba Pool was the Liu brothers' territory. Since the Qin family met with trouble here, they must know at least something about the situation. But the man said that since the earthquake, the Qingba twin heroes had vanished. Some people even went to Hanji Island to find them, but came up empty-handed. So, people were guessing that the Liu brothers had either left Qingba Pool, or they were dead. Qin Wei's eyes widened at the news. He felt that the idea of them leaving Qingba Pool was hard to believe. After all, where else could they go? Besides, the price of cold iron sand was rising every day. He immediately concluded that it seemed a powerful dragon had crossed the river into Qingba Pool. Having reached that conclusion, he dismissed the man. He casually tossed a handful of spirit stones into the man's hand. Then, the flying boat beneath his feet cut through the water and sped away. He understood that if a powerful dragon had indeed arrived in Qingba Pool, searching for these juniors would be useless. Therefore, he went straight to a secluded stone house on Qingba Island. Arriving there, he no longer showed his previous arrogance and became incredibly humble. He even took the initiative to bow and salute. He introduced himself as Qin Wei of the Qin family, here to pay respects to the senior. A voice drifted out from inside, asking if he was from old blind Qin's family. Qin Wei immediately confirmed it respectfully. He even clarified that his father was Qin Long. He became even more reverent because this was the place his father had told him about before he left. He said a member of the Mutual Aid Society resided here. If he encountered a problem he couldn't solve, he could come here for help. The voice inside the stone house remained as cold as ever, asking him what the matter was. Qin Wei hurriedly recounted the events at Qingba Pool, while also mentioning his own suspicions. Right at that moment, Du Yuanyi's figure suddenly appeared at the door. Her cold gaze fell upon Qin Wei. At the same time, an aura of a late-stage qi refinement cultivator washed over him. She asked him directly if he was implying that she was the one who killed the Liu brothers and the members of the Qin family.